Hello everybody, I'm Ramsis.
And I'm the Vespor.
And we're here for another convention review. That's right, we just got back from GalaxyCon Columbus 2023.
That's right. We once again were up in Columbus to take part of GalaxyCon. Now, last year, if you didn't know, was our first year at GalaxyCon in Columbus. And to be fair, it was also their first year as well. So we can say that we were in on the first and now we're in on the second. And what a second year this has been.
I know you're here to hear a full review, and we're going to give you a full review of all 3 days. That's right, we did Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to go in order as we always do. We don't do everything, but this year we did try to cover more than we did last year. Last year we did mostly Q&As. This year it's going to be a potpourri of different things, mostly due to the fact that not every Q&A was being held, but that happens at every convention now. You can't avoid a convention without Q&As being canceled. That's a good thing because it worked out. We got a very good variety here, and it's very exciting. Yeah, I think you guys are going to really want to hear all about our experiences at GalaxyCon Columbus 2023. So sit back, relax, get comfy. This is going to be a lot of fun. So here we go with another edition of Vesper's Convention Reviews.
Friday, December 1st, 2023. This is our second year, so second years should be better than the first. So what we learned last year at GalaxyCon was you don't necessarily need to show up 3 hours before the actual con starts on a Friday. We learned, so we got here early, and instead of going straight to the con, we went to go and enjoy some of this wondrous food right here.
That's right, Five Guys, and we're always going to tell you about some interesting food experiences we have while we do these cons. And interesting is subjective, because I know, you're probably saying Five Guys, who cares? Well, it's kind of cool. We don't have it in the area that both of us come from. We come from close by areas, and we don't experience this often. So when we see something fun and different, we're going to let you guys know. So we saw Five Guys, and now before I tell you why we ate at Five Guys, I should mention there was a Micro Center right across from it in Columbus, and Micro Center is one of those super computer stores where you can buy anything computer related. We walked through there, and then we got hungry. Both hot dog guys, so we went with the hot dogs, the soda, the fries, good stuff, and we had a nice, enjoyable, overpriced meal. Yes, Five Guys is overpriced. Worth it? That's up to you guys to decide. We're not going to debate that. I'll say no, it's not worth it, but it's a nice treat to have when you can't have it.
And the reason we had this treat was because most of the time you don't want to eat convention food because it's usually the same thing. And lo and behold, it was the same thing. Look at all of these restaurants that are the exact same as last year. Not a single one went out of business.
But I will say, in defense of the Greater Ohio Convention Center, the prices are very reasonable for food. I'm going to give them credit because we've been to many cons and the food prices are crazy there. It really is. I'm going to give Columbus, Ohio's convention a very positive review. Their food prices are very reasonable, but we'll get to that when we get there. So pretty much we finally decided, all right, the event starts at 2 o'clock. At around 12:30, it's time to head over there. Drove in, and it was just as we remember last year, very easy to get around. We like to park in the south because it's sort of away from the other main parkings, but it's still easy access. You go right into the staircase, the entrance right there, very easy to get to. So we try to do the southern parking, and it was filling up a little bit already. Friday is going to be much lighter than Saturday and Sunday. I'll tell you guys that now. When you go to conventions, always realize Friday is going to be the lowest day. And it's not because it has the worst stuff, it's because people are working on Friday. We're lucky that we have jobs where we get days off. If we want to put in for them, we did. We can go on Friday.
I recommend that on Friday, be there before 1 o'clock. We didn't have any trouble in line getting to the registration. But as you can see here from these pictures, look at this line of people waiting to get into the exhibit center. Now there's going to be a secret to this that nobody's going to know except for us, and we'll tell you here very shortly.
So stay tuned for that. But before we do that, we're going to tell you a little more about the layout of the land because it did change. So if you watched our video last year, and we hope you did, they changed around some of the rooms and ways things were done. So this year, we went right in. We got our tickets easily. We always buy the deluxe 3-day tickets. Why? Because it's a good deal. They usually give a discount if you buy it at a certain time, and it's actually more affordable. You get a 3-day pass. You get some swag with it. Nothing crazy, and they seem to cut that back every year. But still some cool stuff that you get by buying the deluxe pass.
Yeah, so what you can see here, we get a nice double-sided poster, a folder, a actual paper in the folder telling us when the exhibit halls open. You also get a program. You get a nice little GalaxyCon pin and a nice limited edition comic, probably from last year. And you also get the lanyard along with this bag. And yes, if you're wondering, you can look at these side-by-side photos. This year's bag is different.
They always use the, I don't know, I think she has a name, their mascot, GalaxyCon's mascot, but it's usually a blue-haired space fighter of some sort, kind of like a Samus Aran ripoff. They did change it. They always change it. It was done by the same artist, and it looks good. So what we're trying to say is you don't need the VIP. That's where we're going with this. There wasn't as many people that bought the VIP. There's always people that are going to buy the VIP, and this year you get even less the VIP than you got last year. Remember last year we told you there was this wonderful door you can go into to get quick access into the room. They got rid of that this year. Thank goodness, because so many people complained this is the stupidest thing ever. I have to walk an extra 50 feet to a door, and that's all because they bought a VIP and you're trying to warrant the VIP. No. So what they do this year, they gave them a special VIP lounge. That's right. And you might be wondering, oh boy, what's the VIP lounge? Well, it's kind of stupid. All it is you get like a little tented area where they give you your own little place that you can buy soda or a little snack, and you get to sit without anyone looking at you. I don't.
And if you're old enough, you can buy some liquor or beer. Yeah, either way, it doesn't seem to be that good. But what they did keep from last year with the VIP was still useful if you're into getting autographs, because they made a VIP line straight to the front of any of the photo ops and autographs.
And this is very important because I'm going to say these lines were crazy this year. I don't remember being this bad this last year. So that's it. This time we didn't even have to wait on the line. Like last year, remember our review, we said we had to wait on a long super line. This year, we learned something. There's a lot of lines, but these lines don't mean anything. I know it's crazy. You're like, Ramses, what are you talking about? Well, we'll get to that. So we walked in, and there was so many people helping us, which was great. They really had a lot of workers there. And we're like, oh, we're the deluxe pass. What do we do? And she's like, all right, you two get on this line. That's the deluxe line. And it was only like, 20 people at most. Moved very quickly. Maybe 10 minutes later, we already had our passes in our bag and our swag, and that was it, and we were on our way.
Now we're going to go over yet some more changes they did, which are for the better. It's almost like they listened to what we had to say last year. And what they did was they actually utilized so much more of this convention center. Last year it was packed, it was cramped, and it was not organized. They now have these wonderful LED stands telling you what's in these rooms, when it is, when to be there, and they actually have people directing you in for time and after time. They're not trying to hold you until the actual panel or Q&A is over. They're just like, go on in. Take a look at this wonderful picture where they don't care what you take pictures of. They even say, be aware everybody is open to take your picture. They don't care. They don't have security guards going around making sure you can't take pictures of their celebrities.
One of the reasons why I love GalaxyCon, because they get it. We've been to too many where it's like, you can't take a picture here, you can't take a picture there. Oh no, not here, not there. I guess that's why Sam Raimi isn't at this convention. Now, the only ones I had a problem with were some vendors. Some vendors were not happy that we were only taking pictures of stuff and not really buying. I get it, but you know something? Again, they're under the same umbrella. Too bad. That's the rules of the convention. People are going to take pictures of anything and deal with it. Some vendors were actually putting signs, no pictures allowed. I don't even know that's enforceable. Really, what are they going to do? Throw you out? There's really nothing you can do about it. So now let's just give you some of the changes to the floor plan before we go on with the itinerary that we had on our first day here. The biggest change they had is there's an upstairs area. It's called level 2. And they have this huge exhibition hall, we'll call it. And it's 2-doored, and it's like you can go in the exhibition A or exhibition B. It is just as big as their main hall, and it's called the Super Stage. And they had a lot of big celebrities going on here, and it was so great. And you have 2 just as large areas now service so many fans at once, and it was a great idea.
And also, they utilized the top portion on the far end of the exhibition center. There they have a giant room they used for card games, board games, and everything else you could think of in here. It was just amazing. It was huge, and it was easily as big as the Super Stage. And quite frankly, they needed it.
Yeah, and they had 6 separate rooms besides the huge Super Stage and Hero Stage. They also had a smaller sidekick stage that would be like half the size of it, and that's where other celebrities were going on. So this convention hall has plenty of rooms, but 6 rooms they had were used for minor panels, and we did some of them this year because we wanted to give you a taste of it.
For your Q&As with your celebrities, you had the main stage, you had the Super Stage, you had the Hero Stage, and you had the sidekick stage. For the panels, you had panel room A, B, C, Indeed.
They had 2 workshop rooms. We didn't do any workshops. We are creative, but not in the stuff they were doing here. That's all the rooms they had. It was really a lot of choices. And this is not even the main exhibition hall, which we're about to go into now. Now, the exhibition hall, they made some changes too. It's really the same in that you have all the vendors all over the place. I felt there was less vendors. Vespor felt it was the same. More of the space was utilized. They really spread it out. All the food places inside the exhibition hall were actually available this year. That was not the case last year. They had all these celebrity autographs on a whole section. I mean, you're talking about like 1/6 of the whole entire area was just devoted to celebrity autographs. And these were packed. The lines were packed for almost every celebrity. And then you have the photo op area, which is just as many booths. You have booths and booths and booths of just all these photos. But it was great in that it was sort of secluded. It was away from everything, so I liked how they did it.
The things they changed from last year when they spread out the convention center is they moved a lot of the video game area, which was in the to your left at the far end. Well, now they moved it because they put extra board games over there. Put the Ghostbusters over there, a lot of Star Wars, 501st. They organized this a lot better and utilized it. So props on that. Great improvement from last year.
The sad part was the video games, which was beautifully done last year. Last year they had every video game console you can think of, all the way from like say the Atari 2600 all the way up to the PlayStation 5. Well, this year they decided, retro is not fun. Who wants at a pop culture convention? Who would want to play retro games? Which I know you're all laughing and saying that's ridiculous. Of course it's ridiculous. They had only the Switch, the PS4, the PS5, and the Xbox, the newest one, series, whatever they call it. That's all they had available. And they had rows and rows and tables and tables and tables, and that's all they had. And we were very, very not happy about that, because this year we were going to actually say, oh, well, this year we're going to include a fun segment of us playing some of these retro games. Nope, they had no retro games. And me and Vespor are going to play devil's advocate. They might have used a different company. It might be different people, so that's fine. But if you guys are listening, please bring back the retro gaming. That is so important to a pop culture convention like this. You have so many people in their 30s and 40s who would love to experience all this ones and recreate memories, and they have no other chance to play these systems again. I think it is a wonderful thing that you guys did last year. Please bring back all the retro games that were there. Now, they actually had a tattoo area. I know you guys are thinking, oh, like what you do at the carnival, you get those little paint. No, we mean a real tattoo area. It's called Tattoo Row. They had people laying on chairs and moaning in pain as they had these tattoo artists drilling them with the tattoo guns. We're not kidding. They really had a tattoo parlor there.
Well, they had a zombie workshop earlier in the con, and I thought, oh, they're doing up the zombies here. And I was like, oh, wait a second. No, that's a needle gun. Yep, they're getting tattoos.
Yeah. And now the funniest area is the family zone. Remember the family zone, Vespor?
Oh, yes. You mean that place where it has the demons guarding the children?
That's right. This is what they have as a family zone. So it's this gigantic green-eyed creature guarding some tables and chairs, and that's what they call the family zone. I don't even know what this is. I guess you want to drop your kid off while you're drinking or something. I really didn't even understand what the family zone is. That's all the new rooms at the place. So they did a great job. The wrestling ring was like so far in the back now, it was crazy. Like you felt you were like in another building by the time you got down. Now that you know how everything's organized, let's tell you what we plan to do. So at 3 p.m. was the first supposed start of the event. So we went through the schedule together, very like a fine-tooth comb. We always do that because this is a wonderful convention. There are so many activities during every hour. They break up some of these events into 15-minute blocks. So you really have to plan accordingly because the Q&As take about 15 minutes and all these other events are going on during the hour. So you have to plan that. If you're going to do a Q&A, that means you're missing all this stuff. So you got to make sure that do I want to do the Q&A or do I want to do this event or do I want to do this other Q&A that'll run at the same time? You have to really plan it out. 3 o'clock was our first Q&A. We're like, oh cool, who's at 3 o'clock? Mike Quinn. Mike Quinn is someone that you probably all have seen before, but don't realize you've seen this guy before. Now, Mike Quinn played Nien Nunb. And you're like, Nien Nunb? That's right, Nien Nunb. That little funny-looking alien guy who sat next to Lando in the Millennium Falcon in Return of the Jedi, Episode 6. You're like, oh, yes. Well, guess what? He canceled. So it's funny that we're starting out this convention the same exact way we started out last year's convention, because do you remember who canceled last year? That was Brent Spiner. That's right. So we're starting out exactly the same way as last year where we're having a cancellation. Unfortunately, though, this time there wasn't just something you could jump into. So we went to the floor and we're looking through the schedule and like, all right, what can we do while we're waiting for what we want to do next? And what it turned out to be was at 3:15, we're going to jump into our first random activity. We're going to do FSCW Game Night. And Game Night's a funny term because it's at 3:15. It's really game afternoon, but that's all right. And they're going to play Pictionary with their fictional wrestlers. So these conventions are known for having these role-playing cosplay wrestlers. It's like they do a fantasy league where they're all acting as a famous iconic pop culture character. And they're going to play Pictionary. That could be fun. They're all going to be wearing the costumes. They're all going to be enjoying Game of Pictionary. They'll have all the effects. This will actually be a blast. So we were looking for. They're like, hey, why not?
Well, guess what? It was anything but what we expected. They didn't come out in their costumes, they just came out as was. And there was actually a family in there that thought they were going to get to see them role-playing as their characters, but instead ended up cussing and coming quickly in an adult event, so they had to leave. It was still entertaining. It was still fun. And we got our first taste of one of the first new moderators, Milo Beasley. To prove that this was actually a fun little game session, here is this nice little clip.
All right, you have negative 10 seconds. Keep going, keep guessing. Any guesses from the audience?
Tumor.
Road Warriors.
Legion of Doom.
Legion of Doom!
So as you can see, they're trying. Win, lose, or draw with Vicky Lawrence. This is not, but they are trying very hard to do it. But it's so schlocky, so cheap, so ridiculous. First of all, they were having trouble with that easel there where they couldn't even figure out how to set it up. None of the cosplaying wrestlers are even wearing costumes, so it's all just generic guys. Who cares? These aren't celebrities. Who cares who these guys are? We want to see them with a costume. It makes no sense. They're just acting doofy and not even acting like their character. Thirdly, the game was just pretty much put your hand in the bag, pick out some pop culture character, draw it, and then if you beat the other person there, you win some cheap, like, stuffed animal or something. I was like, wow. So we did 2 of these, and then we said, all right, we got our fill of that for you guys. The thing you're going to learn about this is these little side events are hit and miss, and that's expected. These are not big deals. These are very cheaply done. These are time fillers. I get it. Some are better than others, and it's not for lack of trying.
Unless it's a panel that you are actually interested in, we quickly found out that, yeah, you probably shouldn't go to these panels unless there is literally nothing else going on.
And now the next event we wanted to do was Denise Crosby at 4 p.m. And Denise Crosby is the former Tasha Yar on Star Trek The Next Generation. But we had some time, so we went to the exhibition hall and we wanted to get a more feel of the land. And we're noticing that, yes, there are some of the same vendors from last year, but there's a lot of new vendors, but it looks like they have a very anime slanted clientele this year. And I myself am not really into anime. Vespor likes it a little more than I do. So that means a lot of vendors I was not interested in. And then we got to head to the Super Stage to get to Denise Crosby.
So we get to the super stage, and it surprises us at the size of this room. Also, it surprises us in the fact that they have all this wonderful blue lighting in here, and it's very easy on the eyes. The stage is good. Everything's good about this place. And the best part about it was there is no way that this stage is going to fill up because, quite frankly, it's as large as the old main stage was last year.
This year they had the private events, but it wasn't used there. They used other rooms for it.
The prices for these private events, quite frankly, not worth it.
Now, this is going to be different because this is not going to be one of the moderators, but it is going to be someone that we did experience last year will be one of the people sitting on the panel here. So it's going to be a 4-person panel interviewing Denise Crosby, and that's how they're going to do it. And, you know, believe it or not, it actually worked very well. Denise Crosby came out about 3 minutes late. We're going to find out that all these panels start late, but they all run late.
The name of those interviewers, if you're wondering, is called the Inglorious Trexters. We took some video of Denise Crosby, so please enjoy this.
Gene had screened a whole bunch of movies, and one of them was Aliens in the role of Vasquez, which at the time was very new, and Tasha Yar was very much influenced by this Vasquez. Did Gene talk to you much about the role?
Thank God Gene was there. I had the great privilege of working with the master, working with the visionary, working with the man who created it all. And he would answer any question. He would elaborate if he could, but it was more a collaboration. It was like, oh no, this is yours now.
And as you can see, yeah, it's going well. They're asking her questions. She's very jovial. She's really getting into the conversation. And she answered all the questions you would want. And that's why I think they did a good job, because they covered all the subjects that any fan there would want to ask. Like Steve Whitmore last year, we were so disappointed because the stupid moderator there didn't ask the questions we'd want. Why did Denise leave the show? And she was very honest. Unlike Terry Farrell, who was a little wishy-washy in her answer last year, Denise Crosby answered it like a pro. She was honest. And this is what she's always said, and she kept true to her answer. She was young at the time. She was told by Gene Roddenberry that her character was going to be very minor and not have a big role. That was only going to be about Captain Picard, Data, and Riker. And she was going to just be a minor character who was going to have little parts in the background. And the pay was very little. Of course, we all know that changed when Gene Roddenberry died and every character got an episode focused on them and she would have been fine, but that she didn't know that was going to be the case. So she didn't want to deal with this. She had other opportunities where she could make more money, get to take a chance. She didn't want to be 20-something and say, gee, if I don't try, I'll never know. So she was very honest about it, and it was a great answer.
And then she talked a lot about the Code of Honor, which was her biggest episode where she had the most lines as Tasha Yar in it. And it was something that was a bad episode, and then it was brought into the limelight for today's audience, which means it is totally inappropriate what was going on in that. It's not really worth talking about other than the fact that this episode was just a bad episode all around, and even she agrees it was a bad episode.
And even she was like, just because today they reject the episode for whatever reasons doesn't mean she wants it removed. You don't remove episodes. It is what it is. Would they make an episode like that today? Probably not. Is it as bad as everyone says? Who knows? That's up for you guys to decide. If you want to debate it, you guys do it. We're not here to do that. I've seen every episode of Next Generation. Is it a bad episode? Absolutely. Is it bad because of the reason it's saying? Again, that's not for me to judge. I think the episode just stinks.
Remember, the first season, folks, was not that good. No matter what anybody says, the first season had Gene Roddenberry controlling it, and it was bad because even LeVar Burton, he was crew member 7 of 13 at the time.
Michael Dorn as Worf was a very, very, very minor character, and he should be kissing the ground that Denise Crosby walks on, because without her, he wouldn't have become anything. So that's where the conversation went, and again, they did it very well. They were covering all the bases and everything that we wanted to talk about, because these are the questions people would ask. Why'd you leave the show? What'd you think of this episode? Are you upset you left? And of course, she talked about all the other times she returned to the show, because believe it or not, they brought her back as Tasha and Tasha's daughter from an alternate timeline, and she got all the attention that she wanted as Tasha Yar in the original season.
They were getting ready to begin their discussion of Trekkies. We left 5 minutes early because we had to get to the Austin St. John Q A, so we didn't get to hear about her discussion of Trekkies. But that being said, excellent panel. With 5 minutes left to spare, we hurry out, run down the escalators, hurry to main stage, see this brilliant glowing board that blinds you as you walk in that says Austin St. John.
And that wasn't here last year. A brand new teleprompter screen above the head, and it is so bright your eyes are blinded by this thing with a gigantic name. And if that's not enough, they have spotlights shining down on you. It's not a white light, it is a heavy blue light. So we feel like we're in the Twilight Zone here. We have lights all over the place. So the lighting was bad, and they will fix this later in the event. They realized how bad it was on the first day, but this was horrible.
It was giving us headaches, in all honesty, and not only us, but other people, like on the stage, were showing signs of getting headaches, holding their hands above their eyes. But the good thing was we saw it. Austin St. John at the Lexington Comic and Toy Convention, and he didn't speak too much back then. He was on a full panel with other Power Rangers. How would he do by himself? And you know what? He was amazing.
Yeah, it was very impressive. I thought it was going to be like, oh wow, the guy really doesn't talk much. He's kind of shy, soft-spoken. You wouldn't know that from what we saw here at 4:45 on Friday, December 1st. He was amazing. He was really good. Now, he had a new moderator here, so we were happy they replaced some of the crummy moderators. That was one of our biggest complaint, and I still stand by that. I don't care if you guys agree with me or not. The moderators last year were horrible. This year, I'm going to say they were good. He is great. I'm going to give him props right now. The guy's name is Victor Dandridge. Wonderful, wonderful. He said he's a stand-up comedian. He's very good with people. Whenever it was a panel with Victor, I was very happy because I knew, wow, we're going to get a good panel. So now Victor is warm with the crowd. The crowd's ready, and it's a good turnout. But remember, Friday, less attendance. So the room's not going to be packed, but it is about half filled in the two main areas. So he starts out with the question that he really answered at the previous convention that we saw him at. And we have some footage just to give a sample of some of the stuff that he was talking about here.
The first 80 episodes, we weren't in the suits that much. You could tell when I was in the suit because I was built like a tank. And my Japanese counterpart was very light. That guy might have been $150. And I was like $195. I was thick. So like he goes up in the air and he'd just stay in the air forever. Forever. It wasn't natural. I go up in the air and I come down like a meteor.
So yeah, that's just a tiny sample, and we can go on forever. He went on and on. He was talking. It was great. So pretty much he changed his story a little bit by delving more into it. So he made a $20 bet with a friend that he's going to get this part, and of course Austin St. John didn't think he was going to get the part. Like 10,000 people showed up to his audition. How was he going to get the part? And they kept calling him back, and yeah, it looked like he was going to get the part, but he had to prove his martial artist prowess. That was the test he had to pass. And again, we're taking this with a grain of salt. We don't know how true all this is. It's a great story, but it sounds like a little fiction-y, because he's talking about how there was this great Asian martial artist and he was like a pro and he worked on all the major movies and films, and he didn't talk, but he was a fighter, and you had to match wits with this guy, and he's talking about all these battles he had, and the guy was making him go faster and harder and stronger, and he was going so fast that he actually kicked the guy in the face, and he went flying, but landed perfectly, and then the guy just went faster and faster. I mean, again, you have to take this all with a grain of salt, but it was a very cool story. It was like a 10-minute story of how he became a Power Ranger.
Yes, I think talk about some of his experiences after being the Red Ranger, about how he went and pursued his own life and then was called up in the middle of pursuing his own life as a firefighter, amongst other things, to come back and film an episode about all the Red Rangers, only to find out there was like 11 of them, and he goes, "What have you been doing? Just killing off Red Rangers since I've been gone?"
Cool. I saw Forever Red, and I think you saw that too, right?
Yes, it was actually
It was
interesting.
a great episode. He walks in, like, he's the last to show up, and it's like all the other Red Rangers already there. Like, oh, I guess Jason's not showing up. And then Jason shows up on his motorcycle. He takes his glasses off, and he's like the oldest of them there. He's like 30 years old at this time, and he's looking all of them over. He's like nodding his head as they're all like happy to see him. It was just, it's really a very cool moment how they played it here. And now they also talked about, like, gee, how did you get called back? You left the show in bad terms when you wanted more money and all that, but then they called you back for Gold Ranger. How did that all go about? He's like, yeah, I didn't think I'd ever hear from him again. I thought it was going to be like, well, I left the show, they got rid of me, that's it. And then suddenly the phone rings, they're like, hey, how would you like to be Gold Ranger? And how would you like to be in the Power Ranger Turbo movie? He's like, you're kidding? No. Hey, why not? And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. That was pretty much the conversation between him and Victor. And then a huge line of fans formed, and everyone started to ask their questions. Oh, what's your favorite Red Ranger? He didn't really know because he didn't watch it. I didn't remember what he said. It was a silly answer. Is Power Rangers really an overly violent show? The answer is no. It's actually a fun show. It's amazing how this brings families together, and it just keeps going, and it's shown in like every country you can imagine. So it's a phenomenon that's never really going to end. Everyone knows who Austin St. John is now, but he's really humble about it, and it's really cool to see it.
So, with that being said, he had a wonderful Q&A. After this, we were supposed to go and see Anthony Michael Hall Q&A at 5:45. If you don't know who that is, that's somebody that was in the classics like National Lampoon's Vacation, The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and even The Dead Zone, an icon of the 80s. But he canceled. So, remember how we said, only go to the panel if you don't have anything else to do? So we didn't. We decided to eat at our favorite place called Jets.
That's right. We went back to Jets Pizza, and there was actually a crowd there, which is cool, because last year there was no crowd at Jets Pizza anytime we went there. This year, it was crazy. There was people waiting all over the place. Very cool. They serve Detroit-style pizza, which, as I mentioned last year, is similar to Sicilian. It's that thicker pizza, but the difference of Detroit-style pizza is they burn like a little ring of cheese around the crust. Prices change a little bit, but not much. $6.75 for 2 slices and a soda. Like, hey, that's still a very good deal. In this climate and economy, that's a wonderful deal, so sign us up. We were going to do it.
And now, after we finished our food, we went and looked around the exhibition hall because we had no other Q&As on the schedule because we had 4 for this day. We only got to do 2 because of 2 cancellations. However, that being said, we want to do more things, so guess what? It's panel time!
That's right, so as we mentioned, we're going to try to mix it up this year. And now, at 6:15, there's a funny little panel called Horror Movie Trivia Challenge. So after we walked through all the floors, we were looking for stuff to buy. There wasn't much stuff to buy. We do get stuff, but not much. We decided, hey, let's try one of these panels. A trivia game. Okay, so the Pictionary kind of sucked. We're like, well, this has to be better. It's a horror movie challenge. This has to be set up like a game show.
If you've ever gone through school during the day and age of PowerPoint, we thought, oh, look, they're going to do like a PowerPoint trivia. They may separate rows into, teams and have a captain. I know a bit of horror trivia, but here's the big surprise. We walk in, and here you go.
Yeah, pretty much this was as unprofessional as you can imagine. You thought the Pictionary was bad, this is even worse. So it's a guy on his cell phone just randomly looking up questions. There's no organization. It's first come, first serve. You have to answer 4 questions, and then you get called up on the stage. You can be one of the finalists to go against the other finalists. And it was silly questions like...
Oh, I've got a great one. Sorry, very sinister. I want you to give me the kill count for the first Scream movie.
And it was like people were looking on their phones and people all over the place.
Yeah, I was dozing off. It was literally that boring. how could you turn something as fun as horror trivia into something so boring? It literally looks like they found one of the workers. No offense to the guy doing this, because obviously you didn't have time to prepare. It looks like they said, hey, host this. The projector wasn't working. Nothing was working. This was just a complete mess.
Walked out right after that. I said, Vespor, this stinks. Let's get out of here. So the panels kind of sucked. The Q&As were good, but we wanted to learn that because we'd never done these panels. We wanted to see what exactly goes on in these panels, and now we see we aren't missing anything. We didn't want to leave yet. So we're going to do another panel, and Vespor and myself are going to have mixed reviews on this one. But I'm going to go in saying I think this stuff is a bunch of nonsense. I'm not a fan of this. At 7:15, we went to something called Haunted Hollywood, and it was hosted by Dave Schrader. He's the host of Travel Channel's Ghost of Devil's Perch and Holzer Files. So he's done all this paranormal stuff. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I think it's stupid. I'm not saying I don't believe in ghosts. I'm saying that a TV guy is not finding proof that no one else can find. That's what I'm trying to say.
He's a great storyteller, this Dave Schrader. Absolutely loved listening to his stories, but the problem was we thought he was going to show clips and tell us histories of all these hauntings in Hollywood. Instead, he's like, you need to believe in everything I say. The proof I have is an EVP recording that even I admit is so terrible you can't understand why it is.
Here's a little sample of what this discussion went like, just so you guys get an idea.
As we're doing the ghost hunt and we're over by this one little nook in the corner, whack! We all turned around and right behind us is the shoe. The bed's over there. The shoe's over here. So the Roosevelt Hotel is haunted and it lives up to its deal.
So as you can see, it's just him talking. It doesn't mean anything. He's a great storyteller. He's funny. He's witty. He does great in front of crowds. He's making jokes about talking soft, talking loudly. I mean, that was his whole shtick. He does a podcast. He mentioned that 100 times. He's a host of a show. I'm popular. I'm famous. Congratulations. His stories didn't mean anything except stories. All the proof we had was him claiming this by using the What's It machine all over and over again. Oh, he had proof, everybody. Why don't you listen? I have it on tape here, guys. Why don't you listen to proof? And it was like, mumble, mumble, mumble. Oh, didn't you hear that, guys? The woman was saying, I enjoyed killing someone. I'm like, I didn't hear it. Oh, you didn't hear it? Yeah, let's do that again. Mumble, mumble, mumble. You can very clearly hear it. She was saying, I enjoyed killing someone. Look at Vespor. I'm like, is this for real? I mean, this guy is claiming, here it goes, because he has mumble, mumble, mumble on his wacky device, claiming that he's hearing ghosts on the Queen Mary ship. I'm like, wow. I know you guys thinking we refilm things. Oh, we do refilm things because we want to get better effects on things. We want to get better reactions. A car might be making noise. I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course it's rigged and all this nonsense. So he's claiming they were begging him to come to Paramount Studios because there were so many ghost sightings there. It's near a cemetery. They've had a lot of deaths there. The ghosts are out of control. So the story I remember most is his talking about he went to the old set of The Gong Show. And that's where they filmed the last show that Red Fox did. And he died of a heart attack while filming. That's actually a famous story. But they claim he died in the hospital. And this guy's like, no. You know, they always claim they died elsewhere. I know for a fact he died of a heart attack there, but they're going to claim it's elsewhere. So he technically died on the set of The Gong Show. I heard footsteps, and there was a gong from The Gong Show set hanging above. So the footsteps are heard, and this security guard's all nervous, like, oh my god, I don't know what to think. Are you hearing that footsteps? He's like, yeah, I hear footsteps. Uh-oh. And it's like, I don't believe it. Well, Dave Schrader's like, Ghost, if you're here, prove it right now. And then the gong of The Gong Show sounded, and the guy freaked out and wanted to run away. I'm thinking to myself, so on a movie studio, they're able to do sound effects and wacky things happening, and we're supposed to believe that means Red Fox is haunting the set of The Gong Show. I mean, this is what the guy wanted us to believe. I'm laughing at how ridiculous the story is.
The problem is that he comes off as the most believable person, and I want to believe, but being a skeptic even myself, he literally chose the worst examples possible, where you can go, gee, this sounds very circumspect, very coincidental. But that being said, I didn't hate it like he did. I truly believe Dave Schrader believes everything that he's seen, because sometimes he forgets he's a skeptic and is like, this is the truth. I'm like, not really. Whenever you say that you're doing reshoots and trying to make it look better on TV for everybody, because, you know, TV shows, you're not out to prove the supernatural, you're out to entertain.
I had the honor during COVID of walking the Queen Mary ship. No one gets to do it. It's the most haunted ship ever, and the TVs were turning on by themselves as I walked by. It was amazing. I've I've never once said I don't believe in supernatural ghosts. I don't believe that this guy is the reason we're seeing ghosts and that this guy is seeing anything but a lot of funny special effects, and he's putting on a good show for us. A bunch of nonsense. Good storyteller. I was laughing. He was funny. Very good entertainer. But that's all it was. But with all that said, it was still the best of the 3 panels that we did that day. As bad as it was actually amusing and funny to listen to this guy telling us these ghost stories.
And it really didn't meet the real reason why I wanted to go there, which was I wanted to hear stories of haunted Hollywood. He told us 2 things in total about Hollywood.
And it was mostly stuff from his TV shows. And then, of course, he gives a plug for, don't forget to buy my podcast for $20 or $21.50 if you use credit after the panel. I was like, I wouldn't pay 3 cents for that stuff. So that's how it left. We all got out of there. We're never doing a panel run with this guy again because he did panels all weekend. I said, Vespor, you can go to any more panels he does. I will go to the bathroom. I'll go eat something. I will go sit in the corner. I am not doing any more of his panels. And we didn't. But that was our experience on Friday. Because once you get past like 7 and 8 o'clock at these events, floor fully closes at 8 and then it becomes adult night. Pokemon dating game. Like, oh yeah, Vespor, you want to do the Pokemon dating game? We're like, no. We're big hentai fans. No, we're not hentai fans. Star Trek After Dark. Oh, that'll be great. Yeah, we'll all stay here till like midnight and talk. No, we don't want to do that. So yeah, we left. And it was easy to get out. Like I said, Friday is not going to be a crowded day at any convention. And now we learned from last year. We actually got something to eat. Because last year we did movie night with Steve Whitmore and it was Krista Carroll. They didn't do that this year. So we left and then we were going to get something to eat. Finally, we get to eat something in Columbus. So what we did is what we did last year. We went to Myers Supermarket. And it's not that things were closed. It was that we had our fill. We had jets around 5, 6 o'clock. We were kind of full when we're leaving here. We went to Myers, got some snacks, got some drinks, went back to our hotel, and did what we did last year. We actually watched Price is Right on Pluto TV, the Bob Barker era. And it's really close. Now they're showing the first season of Bob Barker, and he just passed away recently. So it was a very big deal that they were honoring him by showing his first season episodes. That was our first day. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Saturday, December 2nd, 2023. We learned from last year. It was really busy, and they're calling for a bigger crowd this year than last year. So me and Ramses decided to get there a full hour and a half before the exhibition hall opens. And you know what? It was the right choice.
This time we went 2 hours ahead of time, and there was plenty of parking. Got a nice spot on the first floor right in the garage. And we decided, hey, we didn't eat breakfast. There's a great Starbucks right in the convention center, and it was already packed. So a lot of people had the same idea we did. There's probably about 30 people already in there buying coffee, snacks, and all that stuff. And we said, hey, we have 2 hours to go. We're going to do the same exact thing. And this was great because it really did soothe our appetites until we were able to get lunch. It really held us over. So I had a coffee that gave me all the energy I needed, a little bagel that was great, and we were good to go. And it took about 15-20 minutes for us to get the food and drinks because it was that packed. But still, we had 2 hours to go. Who cared? Once you're in, and there was no leaving. Now, last year, you guys might remember if you watched our Year 1 GalaxyCon, it was so packed at the time that the convention started at around 10 o'clock that they wouldn't let anyone into the downstairs floor until it was clear enough. This year, they didn't have that problem. They actually planned it pretty well. But I am going to say it's a good thing we got there early also because this place is going to get so crowded. The lines are going to go through all the hallways, and these are gigantic hallways from the main doors of the exhibition hall all the way to the end, curve around and come all the way back on the other wall. We have footage here as Vespor is walking through the hallways. These are all the people that are waiting to go into this exhibition hall, and that's not to mention the people that are going to be waiting to buy tickets later on after all these people are gone. This is packed. We're not kidding. When we say this is going to be a packed day, this is the busiest day of all days of this convention.
Literally every standing room outside the convention center was packed with people, and they were even going upstairs. It was insane. It was so packed, as you can see from these pictures here. It is ridiculous. It made it darn near impossible to shop at the first half of the day, but we're planning to do Q&As throughout the entire day and get autographs, and we were not too concerned with it because by the time that we were done with all that, we could actually move around nicely in the convention center. Not only that, but we have Sunday as well to do it.
That's right. So it was packed. Now, we mentioned in some of our past convention reviews that on Saturday, these exhibition halls can get crazy with all the vendors, and it was like that. This is the first time at Columbus I experienced that out of all the, 5 days we've done at Columbus so far, including last year. So it really was one of those, you had to squeeze through people all over the place, the vendors were all packed. Unfortunately though, like I said, the vendors aren't great as they were last year. It just seemed to be missing that retro feel that it had last year. There was a lot of anime, a lot of pictures, a lot of just dice dice and D&D games. It wasn't like stuff I was into, but the vendors were doing very well. They were packed, and there was people everywhere.
And the way that we could best describe it is, too many of the vendors were carrying the exact same thing. So you would literally go, oh, hey, this is cool. Then you walk in and say, wait a second, did I just see that? And that was honestly the biggest problem, because they had a nice artist alley where you could get what you wanted, but for actual merchandise relating to pulp culture, the past and now, it was the same thing. It was really disappointing.
We saw some vendors that we recognized, actually, because either they were there last year or they're local vendors to where we are from. But besides that, there was nothing special here. And I'm not saying the vendors weren't nice, and I'm not saying they didn't have a lot of stuff to buy, because they did have. It just did not fit the proper retro feel that a pop culture convention should have. They did not have the right merchandise. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't lack of vendors. It was lack of quality and variety of vendors. That was the problem this year.
Well, I just want to show this. Ramses, roll the footage.
Yes, and here's all the footage of all the celebrities that were here. Remember we mentioned on day one, they had a whole sixth of the floor filled with just celebrities. Well, here it is. We're just really walking. They're all waving. Hey, nobody cares. The celebrities don't care. The people working there don't care. The fans don't care. Film whatever you want, and there's celebrities everywhere. This place is packed with celebrities, which is great. The problem was it's not organized, again, and they need stanchions. They need barriers. These lines are all over the place. It looks like a mob of people just standing there. You have no idea which is for what celebrity.
Yeah, they needed barriers, because their idea of a barrier was literally tape on the ground and a little corridor that says VIPs get to go to the front of the line. That was literally it.
You'll also notice, and this is a good time to talk about this, look at all the cosplay costumes here. There are so many people in costume here, and we actually got a lot of pictures of this, and we keep showing you pictures as we're talking of just all the great costumes. You had Warhammer, you had Pokemon. And it kind of made me feel like, gee, I wish I wore a costume. I should have worn that Fox costume I wore during Halloween.
Oh, that wouldn't have worked, Ramses. You know how hot we were for just standing there for 15 minutes?
And some of them had to take them off. It was funny seeing Power Rangers holding their helmets. They must have been boiling in these outfits. But they were very cool. I think the costumes were really great. And we only regret we weren't able to do the costume contest tonight, but we didn't want to wait till like 9 o'clock at night to do that. It just wasn't worth it. But anyway, so we decided, hey, let's get our autographs done. So we're like, all right, Ric Flair, Vestor's a very huge fan of Ric Flair. So like, all right, let's get that over with. That'll be the first thing we do in the morning before we do anything. And then we get to the autograph area, and there's a line that's about a mile long. And they're like, oh, this is the line if you want an autograph for Ric Flair, Mike Tyson, or Pete Rose. And all three celebrities are being run by the same company, and it was like an hour wait. And we're like, you know, we'll get Ric Flair's autograph later. So like, all right, let's go to Peter Cullen. Well, that can't be as long. Boy, were we wrong on that. He wasn't there yet, so we're like, all right, well, good. We'll get it after we do the Peter Cullen Q A. That's fine. So forget the autographs. We're going to have to change our plan now. Let's see, look at the schedule. What is our first thing on the schedule for Saturday?
Our first thing on our schedule for Saturday was of two choices. It was either the Hercules Q A with Tate Donovan and Susan Egan, or we could go listen to Paula Abdul at 11:30, but unfortunately, there was one problem with Paula Abdul. Her time runs against William Shatner.
And you know we're big William Shatner fans here, and we weren't missing William Shatner. So, by default, that means the Hercules Q A went out. Now, you're probably all booing and hissing. We should have done Paula Abdul. We agree. Paula Abdul is as 80s and iconic as you could think of. But the schedule is what the schedule is, and we try to do as much as we can here. So we wouldn't have been able to do much Paula Abdul. We might as well at least try to get as much of the Hercules panel as we can do.
Yep, and that's at the super stage. We thought that the panels yesterday were full, but not full enough. Well, they got really full. Even for the Hercules Q A here, we were surprised.
So Milo Beasley is the moderator, and unfortunately, he's going to be the reason that this panel is weakened a little bit. I don't want to say it's bad. He didn't lead a very good production here. So it's going to be another one of those panels where it's heavily moderated. The moderator is going to be doing all the questioning, the leading, and the running along of it. Some panels have it where the celebrity runs it themselves. Some have it where the moderator just starts it off and gives it to the fans. This one had it where Milo's heavily running it, and he's going to take it in the direction he wants.
No, you're wrong, Ramses. He wasn't heavily running it, because eventually the two panelists decided to ask each other questions halfway
and he was
through.
about to leave. We were like, good, he's leaving, but unfortunately he was only joking. He came right back. Problem with it is like, oh, you think, oh, they're going to ask how'd you get the part of Hercules? What'd you think of the movie? He really didn't go to any of that. It was really, why don't you tell us about some other things that you've been doing? I couldn't care less that people famous for being the vocal actors of Hercules are doing Broadway.
We were really isolated as actors, particularly in voiceover work, because you really are just in this booth. Sometimes we got to record together, but sometimes we're just alone. And then you leave it and you just like send it out to the world and hope people like it. And we've never had that chance to get the feedback one-on-one from people, or to see how you guys cosplay and figure it out, or what it was that resonated with you.
Basically what ended up happening is both of these voice actors actually had really great careers after they got done with their voice acting with Hercules, and they spent the entire panel, no joke, stroking their own egos.
Yeah, they even were just interviewing each other, like Vespor said, because they wanted to keep going on with, oh, I did this, and oh, yeah, I did that. Oh, maybe one day I'll play, in the live-action Hercules remake I'll be one of the Fates. It was them being ha-ha-ha to each other. The crowd's giving polite chuckles. No one's laughing hysterically about his politeness. And it just was going nowhere.
And by the way, folks, this thing is rated kid-friendly. They almost talked 95% of the time about things that were way above a kid's head in this.
But I wanted to hear about Hercules. I mean, it's like, that's what we're here for. I don't mind any of this other stuff. I'm not against anything. I'm just like, I'm not here for this.
How was Danny DeVito? How was all these people, you know?
I mean, they talk about a little bit, oh, we barely got to see anybody. And that's true. I do believe that when you're in the recording booth, it's not like you're hanging around to the guy you're talking to. You record all your lines. Person on another day, totally separate from you, will react to all your lines. That is true. I do know that about recording. Sadly, they didn't meet any of the people that were in this movie. So I'm like, gee, there's really nothing for these two to talk about. So then, about a half hour in, we had to get ready to go because we wanted to get to William Shatner. It's so packed, you're not going to believe how crazy it is. But we had to leave. And finally, the stupid moderator turns it over to the crowd. Oh, good. You guys get to ask questions now. And again, with 15 minutes left. But we have a feeling it would have gotten better at that point because usually the crowd asks the good questions that you want to ask these people. And now this is going to be interesting. As we're walking down this escalator, remember we said the second floor? We're like, wow, what's going on here? Why is there people all over the place? Are they still waiting to get in the exhibition hall? No, these people were not waiting to get in the exhibition hall. What were they waiting online for?
By the way, this was at 11:45.
The place has been open for almost 2 hours now, and the registration line is still this long and packed. I wasn't kidding when I said Saturday was the busiest day. We got great seats for William Shatner, so it's a good thing we left the other panel early, front row, because we didn't want to be front row. We wanted to get a nice view of everything. And the lights were much better, so they fixed the situation from yesterday. You didn't have William Shatner's name there, they just had the GalaxyCon logo, which was a nicer color. The lights weren't overpowering, they were still on, but they turned them down.
Before this all began, me and Ramses decided to take bets, because last year we barely got through 3 questions because of a very long question that Shatner refused to stop answering. Now, this year we had a bet. How many would they make? 4? 5 tops?
Stay tuned, we're not going to give it away. Let's see how well William Shatner does this year. But this is going to be the only repeat panelist that we can see ourselves doing because William Shatner is such a random and interesting guy. There's no way it could be a repeat of last year.
They immediately lined up at the microphone before even William Shatner came out, who was introduced by Patty, who was great. He walked out on the stage, put a bottle of water down before Shatner got up there, and he goes, "This is William Shatner," and immediately walked off. But this is where me and Ramses get a little worried because William Shatner comes on there, and the first thing he does is crack a joke about being sick enough to die. And we're like,
uh-oh, yes, we're like, no, not again. And then he goes into a technology rant. Now, you have to remember, William Shatner, he's 92, I believe now, and he gets really obsessed over subjects. So, before he even took a question, he was like, technology. Strike going on? Is a strike not? I don't know, but I had to use my technology. So the first point was, he doesn't know if he can talk about Star Trek or Captain Kirk, because he's not sure the strike is over. That was how this all went into a technology rant.
And here's a little bit of that technology rant, which is prime Shatner. Listen to it.
I went to put in the wake-up call, because you don't dare trust a hotel to call you in the morning. Oh, they called him. Oh, Mr. Shatner, it's an hour late. I'm so sorry. You're sorry? I missed my airplane. They don't care. So I never trust a wake-up call to the hotel. I always put it on my phone. And my phone won't let me program it. My phone is giving me the finger. I now have to outthink my phone. I go back to my bed and I'm able to put on the flashlight. I'll put on the flashlight, leave the flashlight on. It'll eventually exhaust the battery. The whole thing will shut down and it'll reprogram, then I can plug it in. Great idea. Is it on? It's on. 2 hours I'm waiting for the flashlight to exhaust. Finally, it's gone. And it allows me to plug it in, and I'm good.
Right, and that's just a little taste. It can go on forever. Vespor didn't even know when to stop recording this thing. It went on, and it was great. The crowd is laughing. I mean, it really is hilarious. William Shatner trying to figure out how to kill a cell phone. I still don't understand why he wouldn't plug it in. I still don't understand the story. He's complaining about technology. It was hilarious. It's like an old grandpa complaining that he doesn't understand how these things work, and some please explain how it works.
This is where William Shatner shatters every rule about the convention, because we have our first questionnaire with a quirk. Why was that quirk, Ramses?
Well, she has a weird name, and hopefully we'll be able to remember. We'll put it on the screen if she said it. But she had like 2 letters next to each other. It was an Irish name, and she was trying to explain it's spelled like this and pronounced like this, and it was like 2 letters, one was silent. Now, this sort of got William Shatner into another weird tangent. How weird the English language is, because we have names that have 2 letters next to each other that are the same but don't make any sense. And then he was like, why does Aaron have 2 A's? And William was getting obsessed with it. He's like, it's Lloyd with 2 L's. What's with 2 L's? I don't understand it.
And this would become a running joke. Here's the best part. He broke all the convention rules because she had a story about how her grandparents couldn't make it because he wanted to see Shatner. So she asked if he could say hi to him, and then William's like, come on up! And you could just see
Patty in the backstage like slapping his forehead. You were not supposed to do that.
And by the way, he doesn't allow them on stage again, but he does do shout-outs, which is hilarious.
So the first girl's done, and now the second one's like, I don't even watch Star Trek, and they went on with the double letter joke again. I remember you from Rescue 911. I do know that it was very important. A lot of people got a lot of stuff out of it, and then they went into the whole Rescue 911. And this was an interesting story. William Shatner went into a great story of how it actually saved someone's life, because they were watching the episode about carbon monoxide poisoning. The car was left running, and the fumes were actually overtaking the house, and they realized that they quickly opened the garage, got the car turned off, and actually saved the lives. We have a third guest now.
They asked, what was the worst type of experience with a fan you've had? One of the fans broke into his hotel room and stole his underwear, then called back, ransomed his underwear because they wanted an autograph, and he's like, alright, fine, I'll sign something, just give me back my underwear. Well, comes to find out that it was a woman, and she wanted it signed on her breast, and she was lactating, which means she had just given birth to a baby.
Yeah, that was a great story. The place was in stitches. It was great. So then we had a lot of Star Trek questions. So finally, we're like, hey, we got no Star Trek questions last year. This year we got Star Trek questions. And it was cool. Some were like, what's your feelings of the influence you had? He's like, I didn't have any influence. The show was canceled after 3 years. They brought me back for a movie which sucked.
And then finally, we get to the final questionnaire. At number 9, it started off with this kid who talks about all this tough time he's had in school. It sounds like it's going to be the biggest sob story. And then William Shatner looks concerned and goes, oh, were you bullied? He says, no, I stand up for myself and kept him from bullying me. He goes, well, gee, that's a mood killer. I was going to give this whole big spiel about how I stand up to bullies.
He was like disappointed that the guy stood up for himself. The whole thing was just weird and funny, but that's how it ended. They had a fun interaction. It was hilarious. The crowd was going wild. He's still witty. He's still sharp. He remembered everything, and he was so much better than last year. I want to say he made up for everything that went wrong last year. It wasn't even bad last year. He got to 9 people. Everyone was loving it. There was not a sad face in the crowd. The only time that he was upset was when one of the fans said, you're much better than Captain Picard, and only half of the crowd clapped, which is true. Half think Picard is better, half thinks Kirk's better. That's the universal debate. William Shatner was worth it. Please see him if you have a chance to do it. He won't be with us forever, you know that.
So after that, we immediately wanted to go see Peter Cullen. You know, the voice of Optimus Prime, Venger, Eeyore, the Predator, and even more.
It's no secret that on our channel we are very, very big fans of Generation 1 Transformers. Now, we were fooled because we thought, oh my god, all these people that did the experience with Peter Cullen, the room's going to be packed, we're never going to get in. So we go to the room, and the guard there is like, yeah, go on in. They were like, huh? Like, yeah, it's alright, you guys go on in. Like, oh, okay. I wasn't going to say, what about all these prepaid whatever? No, go on in. We got prime seats. We waited for everyone to leave as the other panel broke up. We moved our seat, and that was it. We waited for Peter Cullen. We're like, oh, okay. I don't know what we were so worried about. We got right in.
Yep. And the best part about this was he was head on and absolutely amazing, and also hosted by Victor Dandridge again.
And he was so perfect. He was exactly what you want. He was geeking up. He was a fanboy, but he knew that this was for us. And I love whenever a moderator says this is for you, because they get it. I was going to ask a few questions. Then he turned it over to everyone. It worked out perfectly. Meeting a voice that I've heard so many times, only a few rows away from me. I mean, you don't understand what an honor this is. This is the first time I ever got to see Cullen Q A. I've gotten his autograph. I got into meeting him before. This was a long time ago, and it was a pleasure then. I don't even know where to begin.
Actually, I know how we begin. With this.
My brother was a Marine, received a Bronze Star. When he came back, we were sharing an apartment. I was going to a lot of auditions. And back in 1984, I said, Larry, I'm going to need the car. And he said, Peter, where are you going? Another audition? What is it this time, Pete? He said, I'm going to be a truck. He said, what does a truck sound like? Well, Peter, if you're going to be a hero, be a real hero. Don't be one of those Hollywood types, you know, pretending to be tough and all that stuff, you know, yelling and screaming. And he said, be strong enough to be gentle. It just hung with me, and so while I was driving to the audition, I just kept thinking of that. I read the script that I was to read. When he stood there, and I looked at the sketch, it stood there, and then I read it to, my name is Optimus Prime from the planet Cybertron.
So that is Peter Cullen, and he is absolutely amazing.
And he was doing the Optimus Prime voice during all of it, and then he talked about, you know, all the other voice work he did, and how family always had him doing voice work. And unfortunately, Peter Cullen doesn't remember everything. He's another one of those, he's getting older, he's not as sharp as William Shatner, so he doesn't remember everything, but he tried his hardest. When he asked him, like, what's your favorite line, he didn't remember all the lines.
He answered exactly who his favorite Optimus Prime was, and I'm going to quote him here. Eeyore and the Predator. Those are his famous Optimus Primes, people.
And he did both voices to prove it. You forget that he's Eeyore and he's Monterey Jack. And he's also, which Vespor didn't realize, the voice of the Predator in the Predator movies, making the monstrous Predator sound.
This was great, and now I know
Peter Cullen was having some trouble understanding and with Total Recall. Again, he's an older guy now, so thank goodness we had Milo there, because Milo filled in the holes. And then he went into a subject that I'm very happy about. It's not a secret, I am a very big fan of Frank Welker. He is one of my favorite vocal actors ever, and he's been in so many of my favorite cartoons. And he was telling all these great stories about him and Frank Welker having fun on the set. Telling about all the pranks that Frank Welker would do. He'd do any sound effect, so he would act like a machine is not working right while Peter's trying to do his line, and then Peter Cullen would say, guys, do you hear that noise? They're like, what are you talking about, Peter? It sounds like an air conditioner humming or not working right. Frank would just grin and give like a thumbs up behind him, and it was Frank Welker making the sound of a machine sounding so realistic. I thought it was great. And then they mentioned they're doing all the surviving G1 voice actors met up again to do a special event, and that's going to be released next year sometime. So we're definitely going to look at that. It was worth the wait. It was definitely one of the best experiences we've had there.
And the Q&A was absolutely amazing. Everybody was asking pertinent questions, and he actually answered them straightforward, and it was wonderful. His problem was he was literally just too worn out. If anything else, I'd say his energy level was low.
He's working from 10 to 8 non-stop, and he's not a young man anymore. We understand why he's fatigued.
After the Q&A, everybody left. We could go see many other Q&As, or even go to some panels, but we decided to try and get the rest of the exhibition area viewed, because there were so many people we could hardly look. So we fought for a good solid 2 hours and tried to find something to buy, which I did. So after shopping, we still had enough time to go and get Ric Flair's autograph. Woo! If you want to be the man, you gotta beat the man. I got in there, got it. I told him, I loved it when he was styling up profile and he should do it. And he's like, yeah, I'll try my best. And my biggest complaint was the company that did it, they have a guy standing right there, an agent, that will barely let you talk to him for more than like 2 seconds.
The better picture I took of Ric Flair, here is Ric Flair with the fans. I snuck a picture, I didn't care. The woman who was also running it was like, you guys aren't allowed to take pictures. And I'm like, well, whatever. I'm going to sneak a picture, let them remove it from the camera. I don't even care. Vespor had to pay almost $100 to get a picture and get Ric Flair's autograph. They're not even going to give him a personalized message. I'm going to take a picture here. So it was very nervy that they keep doing this. And we have to learn our lesson. We got to remember, before we go into these autographs, ask, are you allowed to get a personalized message? Because we always assume, as we did with William Shatner last year, that we can get a personalized message. And also, don't forget, that lowers the value of an autograph when you put a personalized message on it. So we are paying more to get a lesser value message. I don't think that's a big deal to get them to write a few words on it if we're paying that much money. The agent made sure to tell Vespor right away, away. Don't ask him anything. He's very busy. He's just going to write the autograph, and then you got to move on.
Anytime that they have agent involved and you have to buy tickets specifically instead of at their signing, it's not going to go well. Kind of sad. Frustrated, because I would like to have said more to Ric Flair, but I did get to talk to him for a little bit, and it was the coolest thing ever. And yes, he is bigger than life, and he is still a man. And we decided to go to a panel because we still had so much freaking time until our Kings of Pro Wrestling at 4:30. So guess what we did? We went to a panel where we knew it would be good. And that panel was, of course, hosted by the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Shooter. And at every one of the times we saw him, he was hired a couple of times to talk about the history of comics, how to make a comic, and none of those times that we've seen him, the last 3 times, was he able to do it. 4th time's the charm.
Yes, finally he got to do what I think he was really wanting to do all along. This time he got a panel called Storytelling with Jim Shooter. He's going to tell you how to write a comic book story. He had the computer set up. He had like a little card of Jack Kirby's rules of comic book writing.
You have all these people doing all these strange things, trying to be artsy and overthink things, and they say these old comic book styles they're outdated. You don't need to use them anymore because they're too simple and flat and straightforward. I think theirs is completely out of date because I can take one of these old comic books, the one that he was reviewing, and go, look at this panel, and you look at this panel, you know exactly what's going on. Straightforward, no questions asked, art style, everything.
How close do you have to be to someone that you can't see their whole body? How close would you have to be?
I can see it. See it. See it. Now I can't see his feet. I can see his knees.
So watch Raiders of the Lost Ark and see how many scenes are full figures. You see the whole body, because that's what you normally see. That is a good thing to remember. Full figures, as in a point of view we can recognize.
I mean, that's very cool stuff. I mean, we can go on and on. We got a huge segment, because again, we're very big Jim Shooter fans. We don't hide that fact. We think he's one of the best things that ever happened to the comic book industry. That's just some of the rules. And now he's going to walk us through a comic book that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee actually worked on together. And it's a spin-off book where it's the Human Torch having to deal with Captain America. We didn't get through the whole comic book of why they were facing each other, but it was building up to that.
Long story short, he went through every panel and explained why everything was done the way it was and how it affected the comic. We didn't get through to the end of it because we literally had to take out the last minute, get to our Legends of Wrestling, which thankfully was literally just right across the hall.
I said all the panels were bad. This was my favorite panel. We only got to do about 35 minutes of it, but it was easily my favorite panel. We didn't want to leave, but we had to. But I do recommend anyone who sees Jim Shooter, please see Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter is one of the greatest comic book legends. A great experience, and I'm glad we saw him again. Unfortunately, though, wrestling is our priority here. We love old school wrestling, and we had to see this Legends of Wrestling Q A, which was in the next room.
And you know what? That room filled up really quick because there were 4 Legends of Wrestling there. Kevin Nash had to cancel at the last minute, so replacing Kevin Nash was Matt Hardy. But they still had the 3 other panelists, which was Kane, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and Sergeant Slaughter, and they came in there and they were loaded for bear.
And now we had a new moderator again that we never saw, and her name was Kid Cadet. She was very bubbly, she was very energetic, and again, it was another one where she was going to turn it over right away. So they all come in, so every wrestler as they introduce,
Hacksaw Jim Duggan! And up next we have Sergeant Slaughter! Up next, everybody, Kane! And last but certainly not least, we have Matt Hardy!
And the Hardy Brothers.
So as you can see, they were in full persona, and it was wonderful. That's exactly what you hope to see. She asked weird questions like, what was your influence on the fandom of wrestling before you joined it? And Sergeant Slaughter did not understand where she was going with this. I understood, but it was a bad question. One of them was like comic books, another was comic books, another was football, and Slaughter was just like, whatever, I don't even know what you're talking about. So that was the end of that. And then I was like, what's your feelings on Royal Rumble? I was like, wow, that's a weird question.
And Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Juxan says, I love it. I was the first winner of Royal Rumble.
He was the first winner.
And they were getting into it. This was not a PG-13 panel in the least. Especially when Sergeant Slaughter talked about scamming Hacksaw Jim Duggan in bowling.
After 10 minutes, her questions weren't going anywhere, so they turned it over to the fans, and that's when the panel got great.
And if you haven't noticed in these pictures, you'll notice that some look like they're taken from the right side and from the left side of the room. That's because at the beginning of the panel, when there were no questionnaires, we could see the panelists from the right side of the room. Then the line appeared a mile long because everybody was a wrestling fan, had a question. I wanted to do it too, but the line was too long. So we had to get up, walk behind the line, and go to the left side of the room.
And we actually had a better view on the left, which is weird, because I thought you'd have a better view on the right side, but then when we got to the left, I was able to see everything very clearly. A lot of them asked stupid questions like, gee, do you think wrestling will ever go back to being realized it's fake or not? I'm like, no, you can't go back to that. The box has been opened, you can't undo it, it's done. So unfortunately, all the fans that want wrestling to go back to how it's going to be, it's never going to go back.
But they also said something that I liked a lot in the fact they said that wrestling has also changed in a way that they don't necessarily like it because it's a lot more scripted than it used to be. And I thought that was the most poetic thing, and it was the most respectful, saying our own way, our wrestling was better because we were more creative. We didn't rely on script writers and everything to carry us.
And I think the fans agreed with that because that got the biggest ovation. It's like you realize there's that shadow of a doubt. Is this real? Is it not? That's all gone now. But you realize what performers they were because they made it believable. They really put their heart and soul into it. And Sergeant Slaughter himself said, I don't care about real or fake. I know that every time I stepped in that ring, I was putting on a show making you believe that I was this character I was supposed to be. And I didn't put any doubt in anyone's mind that I was really in character from every second I was doing it.
And Kane said it best. It's just like Archie Bunker watching TV and somebody asked him, why are you watching that for? You know that they know who's going to win, all right? He said, yeah, that's fine, but I don't. Sergeant Slaughter was like, these people are a heck of a lot more athletic than we are, but they all said pretty much they think they're missing just a little something that they had that made their era of wrestling special, and I fully agree with it.
They tried to ask questions like, what was your favorite match? They didn't really have an answer to that. They tried to ask who did you hate going against? They didn't really answer that. It's hard to have total recall like that, and I think that was the real downside to the panel. Someone named their least favorite to go against, but they were all still respectful of everyone. They were like, it was my least favorite, but only because I knew I was going to be in for a tough match. They were all very respectful of everybody. It was very nice. And they talked about how they liked working on the farm, and Kane was praising Undertaker nonstop. It was just really cool to hear these guys like talking from their heart a little bit.
But that being said, we enjoyed the Q&A. It wrapped up. They answered almost everybody's question. Great credit to them. And then we left, and you know what? We decided that after seeing this wonderful Q&A with wrestlers, we were going to try out the Fantasy Super Cosplay Wrestling.
So we picked FSCW, and it looks like everybody picked FSCW because there must have been hundreds of people here. It was seats and seats all around this tiny little ring, and it's a very small ring. It's not professional size. It's like half-size ring, and they were filled up. We got good seats, and then finally you have these three commentators, and it's all scripted. They're trying to put on a fun wrestling event as if these cosplayers are part of their own federation, and somehow various characters are able to interact with this wrestling. And it's very brilliant how they've done it. I'm going to give them all the credit in the world. So what it is, pretty much, it's cosplayer, which means people acting as a famous character. So this is going to be all comic book and movie and TV characters that all these guys are playing as, and it's great. And then they're like, all right, we're going to start our first match, and then a woman dressed up as Rogue, from the X-Men Rogue, walks out. I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. It's like, oh, who's Rogue going to go against her? Isn't Rogue like one of the strongest X-Men? Like, how's someone going to be Rogue? That's ridiculous. So who comes out, and it's Domino. You might be like, Domino? What's a Domino? The guy from Domino's Pizza? No, it's Domino from Deadpool 2. Domino is the one that has so much good luck that everything goes right for her. That Domino. So we'll show you a little bit of it because we actually recorded this match. I'm not going to show you the whole match. I'll show you some of the interesting parts here. It was all over the place. They were really in character. The ref gets involved. The commentators get involved. The crowd gets involved. Domino wins this match somehow. But it's funny. It was very well written. I will give him credit. This is the first time I've done a cosplay event like this, and I thought, hey, this is funny. This is actually very amusing stuff.
And now, if they could have done the same thing during the freaking Pictionary, it would have been beyond awesome. The next thing we got to see was Star-Lord, who was the multiversal champion of wrestling. He was challenged by Captain Kirk, and that was going to be the closing match of the night. We were not going to stay there for 3 hours to watch this. The match that we get to see after this, though, is the Kingpin with the Head Ninjas fight against Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
I'm like, wow, that's a weird match. How would Jay have any chance against Kingpin? I'm like, alright, well, I guess that means Jay's gonna win because obviously that's where they're going with all this.
And nope, guess what? Jay loses, which surprised us.
Very surprising. This one was a little silly because they had Kingpin acting like a goofy goober. I don't even know how to describe it. It wasn't good. I see where they're going with it. I'm not a big fan of Kevin Smith. I mentioned that last year. The crowd is supposed to be rooting for the face characters, and no one really was because Jay is not a popular character. Kingpin is cool because everyone loves Kingpin from the new Daredevil series. So everyone was rooting for Kingpin, but they're making you have to root for Jay. Like, Jay. Like the commentators were saying that, hoping that the crowd could join in. Some did, but a lot were like screaming Kingpin.
Well, just like where they was trying to make Domino the face, everybody was still rooting for freaking Rogue.
I didn't like what they were doing that. Let it be natural, let the crowd decide what they want to do. They were trying to lead it a little too much. But of course, in some weird happenstance after Jay somehow gets all these weird moves off, Kingpin somehow rolls him up, splashes him, and wins, and the whole thing was really stupid.
But the best match is to come. It was Syndrome from The Incredibles and Skeletor versus Wreck-It Ralph and Kratos from God of War.
Right, I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. The way they played it up was Skeletor was acting like Skeletor. It was, he was acting very good at Skeletor. And Syndrome is this dorky, pathetic guy from Incredible. And he's pretty much playing that up with Skeletor, like that he's the most important one, and Skeletor is nothing without him, that type of thing. And Wreck-It Ralph was doing his, I'm gonna wreck it stuff. And then Kratos didn't really have much in the match. He looked cool, he looked the part, but he really didn't do much.
Basically, he played the role of Andre the Giant, because when he got in, he wrecked. And they won because of Kratos.
So what it really was about was Syndrome kept on messing everything up. Skeletor kept on getting mad at him. They both were trying to take control of being the most evil. Skeletor, of course, was the fan favorite. Everyone was rooting for Skeletor. So to the credit of the guys running it, they did not try to turn the crowd on Skeletor. They tried to turn the crowd on Syndrome, and that worked, but no one was really turning Skeletor. You can't hate Skeletor. Skeletor is one of the most beloved villains of all time. Everyone was rooting for Skeletor, but of course, the good guys win because Syndrome messes up. And then we decided to leave at that point, and that's where Skeletor was getting his revenge on Syndrome. But that's what happened. It was a lot of fun. It was never seen one of these cosplay events. Please do so, but we were not going to sit through 3 hours of this.
And they did it in the style of old wrestling and not the new wrestling. Starting, we took on out, and even though the GPS was acting weird, we managed to make our way to Loops in Columbus. And the best part about this place, Guy Fieri has been here twice. And you know what? They had hot dogs, some french fries, and we got some Chicago-style dogs that were amazing.
Please go to Loops. We're going to give a plug. We didn't tell them we were going to. We didn't even tell them who we are. Very nice people that run the place. Chicago dog was perfect. They used exactly all the ingredients you imagine in it. The fries were perfect. It had a nice little garlic and herb taste to it. Cooked to perfection. Great price for under $15. We got 2 Chicago dogs, a nice sized fries, and a 20-ounce soda. I really was praising this place so much. If you're in Columbus, please check out Loops. There's a reason why Guy Fieri put this twice on his show. It deserves it. It is that good. It's one of those little hole in the walls you don't even realize exist. We came back to the room. We got ready to do our memory of all this stuff here for you guys. Watch some TV and then head up to bed. So far, 2 nights down, and I must say I'm very impressed with this convention.
Sunday, December 3rd, 2023, GalaxyCon.
We don't have to worry about the huge crowds from yesterday because Sunday is a much less attended day, but it's a more attended than Friday, or about the same as Friday. So we didn't have to leave super early. We didn't have to worry about, oh no, we're not going to find parking. We knew Sunday, it starts at 11 o'clock, the first event, doors open at 10. We packed up all the stuff, checked out the hotel, and took our time, found the same exact parking spot we had yesterday, moseyed on in, and like I said, there was really nobody there yet.
We arrived at 9. We went and got some coffee at the Hilton's coffee shop just because of the fact you could get a Frappuccino there and you couldn't at Starbucks, which was beyond weird. We decided that since this is the last day of the con, let's try to get to Peter Cullen's stall and get his autograph for his 11 o'clock event called the Peter Cullen Experience.
10 o'clock. He has something at 11. We have an hour. If we get there early enough, he should be able to whip out, an hour's worth of autographs.
Oh yeah, we made it there. We were 5th in line, folks. We're like, all right, we can easily get one done here in a half hour.
Till the worker there says, Peter Cullen will not be here until 12 noon. Please realize that. And they were like, oh, well, I guess we'll come back. And everyone's like, no, you better stay here. We're like, huh? They said, yes, the line, it was 2 hours wait anyway with how long it was yesterday, so there's no point in leaving. Wow, alright, so I guess we're gonna have to cut out some of the events.
We decided to wait in line wisely and watch as the line behind us got bigger and bigger. And while we were waiting in line, we were looking at William Shatner quotes for a full half hour, such as this little doozy. I see people putting text messages on the phone or computer and I think, why don't you just call?
Yeah, he was just reading them off. Like he had another one, if I remember. When I'm interviewing someone, I don't work from prepared questions. And I can attest that that is true. He does not use the questions. He will just randomly go with where it's going to go. So that is very true. But yes, that's how we kept entertained. And now 11 o'clock hit, and we're like, wow, I wonder how many people are actually in that Peter Cullen experience. Because as we mentioned, it's $300. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I wonder how many people spent the $300 to get an autograph, to get a sound bite from him, and just ask him a few questions. If anyone knows how many people actually did both of these experiences, I would love to know. So obviously not that many people did this because this line is super long.
We actually started to talk to other people in line about Transformers and the philosophy of Transformers.
And then we had a 20-year-old Transformer fan who was really into the toys and really into the old school Transformers, which was great. And he had a huge Optimus Prime helmet, like one of those you can get from GameStop, with the battle scar damage. It's sort of like metallic plasticky, very good quality. He got both that and the Megatron. They were on sale. He got it both for $100. And he wanted Peter Cullen to sign it to say, till all are one, Peter Cullen. And then the woman says, he's only going to put his name on it. And I love when they do this at this convention. That is a problem we have at GalaxyCon, because Lexington Comic and Toy Convention didn't really have that problem. It's really a Comic-Con thing where these people are so overwhelmed that they just want to put their name and expect that, wow, I paid over $100 and you're just throwing your name on. But whatever, we'll get to that later and find out how we dealt with that problem. So that's the guy we were talking to. He was showing us his toy collection. We were talking about old toys versus new toys and where it's gone and the movies, the voice. I mean, the time is just going by and by. And we're missing some great panels here. Nightmare Before Christmas panel, which Vespor didn't really want to do, but we would have done it if we had nothing else. And then we were also going to do something that I would have liked. And now a word from our sponsor, Top 10 Animated Advertising Icons. The guy that did Charlie the Tuna, his name is Joe Wass, and he was going to do a whole panel on it. And I would have loved that. You know, here from our channel, I'm a very big fan of retro cartoons, and I would have loved that, but I was willing to wait, so we gave up a few panels here.
Oh, and by the way, they said, oh, he'll be here at 12:15. He didn't show up at 12:15. And people in wheelchairs started going behind there, and everybody was swearing it was...
That's him. I saw a wheelchair. And then it was funny because the line got huge by this point. Like we said, we're fifth in line. Word was spreading through the line. So like if one of us said something, it just started like telephone game. It started and altering its meaning as it went through the line. Someone would say, I think I saw him, to he just drove away, to did he leave? Oh, he's not coming back. He went to the bathroom. I mean, it kept changing as it went through the line. Like someone would say, I think I saw him, and it turned in he went to the bathroom.
The one thing that was true was the agent of his was like, where is he at? Because we could actually hear that because we were that close to him.
Yeah, she was getting nervous. She's like, wow, it's almost 12:30 and he still hasn't shown up. So everyone was holding their cameras out, and this is not really something you're supposed to do because they sort of frown this. They don't want to give away free pictures. She didn't care. And then the mob of camera paparazzi, I'll call us, because I was doing it too with my camera, went crazy. We were all waiting for Peter Cullen to come behind that curtain. We're like, oh, is he here? No. People were like, don't move, Ramsis. I want to take a picture near you. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to move. And then no one's like, oh, no, you're in the way. Like, where is he? And then finally showed up, and the pictures went crazy. And he looked exhausted. I had to say Peter Cullen is probably one of the hardest working guys at this con. But he was a trooper. He was happy to be there. He finally showed up at about 12:20, I want to say. And he was great.
And the most interesting was, I believe he was actually the longest line there consistently throughout the entire weekend.
Worth the wait. I'm glad we made it through the 2 hours, and it actually went well. When you're all talking together with the fans, the time went by really well. So now we're going to tell you about our autograph experience photos, and they had like 20 different photos. It was mostly Transformers, but it was a mixture of G1, Transformers the movie, and the new Michael Bay movies for choices of Transformers stuff, which was good. And then he had like some Eeyore, and he had one picture of the Predator. But I reminded Vespor that he was also the voice of Carr from the Knight Rider episode. He's done a million voices. He was even the voice of King Kong in the 1976 movie. So we finally got up to the table, and it wasn't that long of a wait because they were not enforcing the VIP privilege. So VIP ticket holders are allowed to cut the line, and there's a separate line on the left in these signing lines, and it's supposed to be every other one, where it's a regular person and the VIP gets a cut, and then a regular person and the VIP gets a cut. They were not enforcing it. And the agent's like, that's not my deal. I'm not enforcing that.
And we actually agree with that.
So we got lucky. We were fifth in line. We were the fifth there. We were told next, and we moved up. And she said she waved us up, so we moved up. Vespor picked out a cool picture. It's a close-up of G1 Optimus Prime. and you could see like his windows on his chest. And Vesper was like, that's a great place to put a signature. It'll really stand out. And now I'm telling Vesper, you know, it can't hurt to just say, sneak in like a little phrase there. I know she said don't, but she's been very polite. She's been very like not caring, but she's so happy he's here. Maybe we'll be able to sneak it in.
Yep, and that's exactly what I did, because unlike with Ric Flair, there wasn't like this big bulky dude staying right next to you like, don't ask
him anything.
But I actually got him to put roll out on there with your
and
name.
He was like, yeah,
sure. And then we talked about how the movie affected us. He's like, oh no, were you one of those kids back then? I'm like, yep.
And we said, thank you so much. You meant so much. He's like, it's my pleasure. It's fans like you that make it so worthwhile. Thank you guys. And that was it.
So after we got this, we quickly put my photo in the folder, and we were like, we thought it was going to take a lot longer. So we finished by 12:45, which means we had time to go see Mick Foley Q A. That's right. Cactus Jack, Mankind, and Dude Love. We got to go to his panel, and it was amazing.
And it was so cool to see Mick Foley acting like just a regular businessman who's having fun, and he's enjoying this, and he appreciates what he did for the Attitude Era, and he appreciates what a big impact he was in wrestling.
So for Mick Foley, the moderator we had was the same one we had from the Legends of Wrestling, Kid Cadet. And by this time, her voice was completely shot. You could barely understand a word she was saying.
She really held her own. She did a good job. She had a good camaraderie with Mick Foley, and that's why it worked so well. When she had the other 4 wrestlers, there wasn't really camaraderie. It was more generic, and it was just the fans asking questions. This time, she was really getting into it, so he must have done other cons where she was moderating because he seemed very comfortable with her, and that helped. But again, she did a good job because she realized it's not about her, it's not about gushing, it's not about, oh my god, you're Mick Foley. It's about the fans. So she asked some good questions. It was Christmas related stuff because we're in December. Really warmed everyone up, but it was really about the fans because it was about 10 minutes worth of that. And then they opened up the rivers and fans ran to the microphone. Now, this is the hero stage. We should have mentioned the hero stage. So we didn't know where the proper place to sit is. And you don't sit on the right side of the room because that's where the microphone is, and we were sitting on the right side of the room, unfortunately.
So if you notice pictures of Mick Foley from the left and the right again, that's why.
You know, believe it or not, the seats we had on the left side was actually better than the right side, so it was a blessing in disguise. Now, a lot of the fans are going to ask the usual questions, like, what's your favorite match? And a lot ask that. Yes, Hell in a Cell match where The Undertaker threw him down, and then someone's like, gee, did that hurt? And he's like, of course it hurt, but I'm in the middle of a match. I'm not going to act like it hurts. Yeah, you're a professional. You got to get back up. You got to do your thing. He's also sort of in character, which I love. I love when they sort of still play the character because, you know, it's all safe. Yes, they do get hurt, but a lot of this is set up so that it looks like it should hurt, but they aren't really getting hurt.
But this one, he actually was really hurt.
Yes, because it's on record that he actually got hurt, but he had to go on, and it's one of the greatest matches ever. So he was glad to do that. And then other questions are like,
about the commissioner, when he was the commissioner during that time period, and all the jokes he got to get away with.
You wouldn't be able to now, by the way, a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, he especially said that. And he also spoke how much he loved his Cactus Jack persona, how much he loved Mankind.
Yes, Mankind was his favorite, and he realizes that you can say Cactus Jack, and they're like, yeah. You can say Do Love, and they'll be like, yeah. But you say Mankind, and the place goes crazy. So Mankind is what he became iconic for, and it is a great character. That's his baby, that's his child, he loves it, and he loves all the stuff he was able to do with it. And most of it wasn't scripted. See, back then, they were able to just get away with free-throwing it. They said, all right, this is where you're going to be. We want you to just interact and come up with something funny and creative. And that's what it was. And they would do many versions of it. It was like, all right, yeah, that was funny. Let's see what else you can do. You know, they would keep doing it. And that's fine. It's an entertainment show. I don't care if they took 20 takes of it. It wasn't about scripts and choreography and you got to do this and you got to do that. It was about, let's just have fun and make the fans happy. That's what it used to be about.
And he was highly appreciative, and that's what made him so fun.
So he was very humble, and he wrapped it up, and they were like, all right, that was a great panel, great wrestler, great stories. The fans were very happy, and he answered all the questions, and it was wonderful when that happened. We have a 2-year tradition now. Whenever we're at this convention, we got to eat at a certain place, and if we're going to do it, now's the only time, because that's it. It's either we eat now, or it's not happening. So we decided we're going to eat now. Cold again. We're going to walk outside in that cold weather to go to Boston Pizza. That's right. So I know you guys are all laughing. Boston Pizza, that place sucks. For where we are in middle of America, it is a great variety to have something different in the means of pizza.
And we got down there, we got seated quickly, and we were so hungry that we ate almost all the food before we gave you this wonderful picture.
Yeah, so here's the leftovers of what we have left. Sorry, we were munching and eating so long, we forgot to, yes, take the usual picture. So he got an interesting artichoke spinach pizza, and I got a margarita pizza. I just went simple, tomato and, you know, garlic and all, and mozzarella. It was good. And we also each tried the nachos and queso, and I'm gonna say the nacho chips sucked, but the queso was delicious. So the queso good, chips bad, get better chips. That would be my review for that, please.
And this is our review of our food because we skipped like 4 panels today.
Yeah, so now you got to listen to us talk about food because while we're eating away, we're missing Michael Roker and we're missing Barry Bostwick. I'll be very honest, the Michael Roker and Barry Bostwick, I didn't have any real connection to them. I haven't seen any of the stuff except Guardian of the Galaxy.
I had a bigger connection to Barry Bostwick because I love me some Rocky Horror Picture Show.
We did cut those out, but it was worth it. It was a good meal. Expensive though. Yeah, Boston Pizza's not cheap and you probably don't get your money's worth. And we had a wonderful waitress, very nice, but she kept on upping us. Get the larger sizes, get the bigger. I mean, I think she was tricking us a little bit and whatever. I don't care.
So after we finished, we went back to the convention center. We had to make a very big decision. We could make one of the 2 final panels. We could either see Walter Conning, better known as Chekhov, or we could see Mara Wilson, star of Matilda.
Like, well, Walter Conning we did before. We did him in one of our previous conventions. Not that you guys saw it. We weren't filming him yet. But we did Walter Conning, and as Vespor mentioned in one of our previous reviews, he was the first one to answer a question. So that was fun. Mara Wilson, who did like 4 famous movies she was in and nothing else, what her life has been like. I like that could be interesting for you guys, or it could be a complete train wreck, and that'll be interesting for you guys too. So Mara Wilson was actually winning as we're walking around investigating some last stuff in the exhibition hall here.
Well, basically, we went to the super stage, which was the 2nd biggest room compared to the main stage. Lo and behold, we find that the moderator, Patty.
Oh, good old Patty. You remember him from last year. He's the one that was overly excited and really into it and was giving out the free candy. Oh, yes, I remember him, and we were like, oh, no.
You know what? He actually got better this year. I'll give him props for that. He knew exactly where he stood with William Shatner during that panel.
I don't know how to explain this. Even he was like, wow, this is the last panel, that's it, and I'm done. And he had that deer in the headlight look like, I just got to get through this, and then I'm done. He wasn't even excited about it.
Oh, by the way, I think he knew what was about to happen. Mary Wilson is not that lovable little girl anymore.
It wasn't even a big crowd, so there was like, I want to be generous and say 70 people in it.
It was like, well, there's a lot of people here, and then she just started talking. And you knew something bad was going to happen when she started talking, because it was in relation to how great she was.
And she never stopped talking, you know.
About herself.
I'm not kidding. She must have gone on for 2-3 minutes of her mouth just moving, her eyes blinking in succession with long blinks and her mouth yapping.
All the name dropping.
Yes.
And then she said, you can't be a child actor with a bad attitude because then you couldn't get work. And I'm sitting here thinking at this point, yeah, how many movies has she been in? Is it all right to be a pretentious child actor? Or is it just all right to be a pretentious adult who's past their prime?
And I don't think she was self-aware. I think she was a bit of a narcissist, and I don't think she was self-aware that the thing she was stating you can't be is what she was. Like, you can't be egotistical, you can't let it go to your head, you can't be attitude. I think she had all these things and more when she was a child actor, so it's hilarious that she didn't see that in herself, and she's claiming, oh, that's why no one else was as big as I was, because they had this and that. And even Patty's like, wonderfully said. That's all he said. But she finished these 3-minute long speeches, just like ask another question, and then she would just go right off to the races again. I mean, it was crazy. Name dropping, and she was bragging about the birthday party that Danny DeVito held for her instead of Matilda.
But I think the biggest problem here about all this is she really hasn't done anything of great importance since her child acting career, and this was done when she was so young she couldn't remember. So I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. Here's how bad it was.
I met a monkey today. I did. I met a tiny monkey. There are now pictures of me with a tiny marmoset on my shoulder on my social media. I just got this bracelet that says Matilda that somebody made for me. I've had a really great time. The fans have been so incredibly kind and thoughtful, and I have met some very cool people. I was just talking with Mick Foley backstage, and
a sweetheart.
Yeah, I met Harvey Guillen on Friday, and
sweetheart.
And just poured my heart out to him because I love what we do in the shadows. And I was actually Jackie Daytona for Halloween one year. Yeah, and Giancarlo Esposito and so many really cool people. And I get to hang out with some of my old friends like Matt Lawrence, my brother. So yeah.
Alright, I'm turning it off here because I think you guys have had enough. That was just a small sample. And then swarm of people that started leaving as she went on and on. Then another 2 people were like, I think we've seen enough. And then they walked out. And me and Vespor were like, should we leave? We're like, no, we'll be fair. We'll let some of the fans asked some questions. It has to get a little better at least, right?
Well, actually, no. After the first question was asked, and I recorded it.
So you were saying that Matilda was your favorite movie. Do you have like a particular favorite scene or thing that you did?
There were a couple scenes that were really fun to film. I mean, of course, chasing Miss Crunchbowl out of the school because it's a food fight. That's, you know, who doesn't want to have a food fight? And Pam was a very good sport about it. There was also, I would say, the montage scene at the end with Miss Honey. Although I do remember there was one scene where we were eating a box of chocolates, and most of the chocolates that we ate in the movie weren't actually very good, but these ones were. And we were eating the chocolates, and I remember Danny, who directed it, was shouting things out, and he yelled out, you know, do this, do that, and then he said, feed each other. And I remember looking sadly down because I really wanted the caramel that I had picked up, but I went like this, and she went like this, and I bit into the chocolate she gave me, and cherry juice exploded out of it and all over what I was wearing, so I had to go change. The heel cut, everybody laughed, and I went to go change.
And that was as interesting as it got, and we said, that's it. And we just got up and left before the next question could be asked. Overall, definitely, without a doubt, weakest panel of the entire weekend because of the fact people were getting up and leaving. They started about halfway through her panel to leave. That's how bad it was.
And it just never really stopped, and then we decided to join the leavers. That was it. And so we had Peter Cullen online for 3 hours. We did the exact exhibition hall. We did Mick Foley. We got a good meal, and then we saw Mara Wilson talk greatly about herself.
And it was the horrible ending to a great con. I really wish we had gone to see Walter Koenig at that point, but it is what it is. Man, sometimes when you experiment, you just hit a dud.
Yeah, and that's what this review is going to be all about, experimentation. So that was it. We headed back to the garage, we paid our parking, we waved goodbye to Columbus, and we took that long trip back to our places at home, and that was it, you know. A lot of fun. We have no regrets, and we are actually glad we went to this convention, and we do recommend it to all you guys. After 3 days, though, it is very tiring. You have to have a lot of energy, you got to have a lot of stamina, you got to really be prepared, and you got to really plan everything out. And you have to be ready for a lot of people, because it gets very crowded in this place. So stay tuned. We're going to now talk about the panels we did in a very short discussion. We're not going to do what we usually do with the Q&As, but we'll give a little ranking of the panels, and then we're going to do a full in-depth review of how we ranked every Q&A that we attended at this convention. Alright, so now we're going to do something a little different, because this year we actually did side panels, and we're not going to do the long ratings of all these. We're just going to give a quick bottom to top, just so you get an idea of what these side panels are like. It's out of the 4 panels, which was the worst and which was the best. We're going to rank it from 4 all the way up to 1, and that's it. That's going to be all we're going to do here, and it's going to be very quick. This is just going to be how much Vespor and Ramsis enjoyed this particular panel. That's it. That's the criteria for the rankings for this segment of our review.
And we're going to start at last place. At 4th, we have the Horror Movie Trivia Challenge. This earned last place simply because of the fact that it literally looked they found some poor worker randomly and said, hey, host some horror trivia, pull out your cell phone.
Yeah, I was not looking forward to this. It was so random and stupid, and even the fans were like booing it. It was so dumb. We gave it about 20 minutes before we had enough of it, and I think 20 minutes was way too much credit to give this.
In 3rd place is the FSCW Game Night Pictionary, and this one had a much better concept, but it failed to impress us, not only because we couldn't get the Etzel together, and then they didn't even wear costumes or in character. The problem was, it just wasn't that entertaining.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was kind of false advertising, and that's weird because this is one of the first events they held during the whole convention. This was early Friday. False advertising was, it's called FSCW Game Night, and you're like, oh, that means they're going to be in their costumes. This is great. They're going to be in character. Okay, it wasn't that at all. It was they were wearing schlubby clothes. They wanted no part of this, and they were going through the motions. What was the point of this? It was just such a mess, and the fact that a family walked out when they're like, this is not at all what we expected. Yeah, that sums up very well.
Next up, 2nd place is the Haunted Hollywood panel hosted by Dave Schrader. And you know what? It was actually a very fun and entertaining panel, but the only problem is with it is that we thought it was going to be a bunch of story times, not him up there telling us, God believe me, here's the proof. It was kind of a little disheartening because all I really want to do is hear some good stories, and he did tell some nice stories. It's just got a little too into it.
I am not a fan of Dave Schrader. I think he's funny. I think he's a great entertainer. I laughed at a lot of the stuff he said. Say whatever you want of me. The guy's a charlatan, a phony. He's a TV showman. He's putting on a show for you guys. every single time this guy shows up, he has ghost activity. That's amazing. Along with the other 20 people that he was bad-mouthing who do the same exact thing that he does. They're phonies, but he's the real one, right? That's what we're supposed to believe. But the reason it's second place is that he put on an entertaining show. I didn't have to believe it, but I was entertained. Perish the thought we have sound effects in a movie studio. Boy, I wonder how they pulled that off. A movie studio, wow.
I think we'll stop here because you already said everything this before. So now we'll move on. The best panel that we went to was, of course, our hero, Jim Shooter's panel. It was called
Storytelling with Jim Shooters.
I actually filmed so much of his panel. It was so interesting. I had to stop because I didn't want to eat up all my memory. He actually told you how you should write a comic that'll keep people entertained.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun, and I'm so sorry that we had to see the wrestlers answer this. I wish that they scheduled things differently, but you're always going to have that problem no matter what. But he was great. He was going panel by panel of a already comic done by both Dan Lee and Jack Kirby. I mean, come on. It was so cool. And he had the audience interested. Really, we were all eating it up. Took out his little red pointer and he was going over everything. And it made me realize, wow, you know, Jim Shooter really, really cared about the craft that he did. So be sure to see Jim Shooter. He's easily the number one. And I'm glad we saw him again. We're very big fans of Jim Shooter, if you couldn't tell. But that was our panels. We saw 4 panels. We could have done many more. And I'm glad we didn't. Just be aware, sometimes false advertising. They give a nice title, but it's not always going to meet the expectations of what they're trying to sell you.
So now we're going to rate our Q&A panels, and we're going to follow the same format as we did last year. We graded each of these on enthusiasm, which is how excited they seem to be there. We did knowledge of the industry, what they did, how much they're willing to share with us, and then interaction, about how much they get the audience riled up, how much they bring in the excitement.
All right, so let's do it. We saw 8 panels in total, so this is going to be based on the 8 Q&A, that's question and answer panels that Vespor and Ramsis saw, and that's all this is going to be based on. There's about 30 Q&As. We only did 8 of them due to time restrictions.
That's right. This is our personal biased reviews.
That's right. It's our review. We get to do that. So let's start her up in the number 8 and last by far position. That's right, Mara Wilson. And I'm sorry, Mara, I thought you brought the charisma, you brought the excitement, but that's all you brought. You didn't bring anything else. The fans were not into this. The crowd was leaving in droves. Your mouth moved nonstop for 5 minutes before you took a breath. You were your biggest fan. Even Patty was looking bored and uninterested. I wanted to like this. I wanted to go out with a bang. Walter Conning might have been better. We'll never know. If you guys saw Walter Conning, tell us what we missed. I wanted to hear like what the life of someone who was a former child actress, what was her life like now? And you find out she's still living in the past. She's trying to become an author. She hasn't really accomplished much, and she's still only obsessing over the movies she did.
Wait a second. That sounds like a lot of child actors that we know about.
You brought the energy, you brought the knowledge, but you didn't bring anything else. And it gets a little better from here. Their number 7 is the Hercules Q A, and that's Tate Donovan, voice of Hercules, and Susan Egan, voice of Megan.
All right, this one is very straightforward. Their enthusiasm was through the roof. It wasn't talking about Hercules and Megan, but it was definitely about talking. Probably the best we've seen at all the panels about the craft. Unfortunately, that craft was Broadway plays. They did have a lot of interaction with each other.
You know, it might have actually been better, and nothing against Milo, because Milo did okay. He wasn't the best, but he did okay. But I think it might have even been better if Tate and Susan were just left to interview each other, because Milo was asking very artsy-fartsy questions, and I'm a retro guy. I don't need the art. Let's hear about recording. Let's hear jokes that happen. And in his defense, he did try to ask that. He did say, tell us some funny things that happened in the recording sessions. And the two of them were like, gee, we were just standing there by ourselves. We didn't even interact with anybody. I'm like, wow, you could have made something up at least. There's nothing exciting about this panel. In number 6, it's going to be Denise Crosby. She answered every single question asked of her from either Victor or the fans. She was very knowledgeable. She was very happy, very well spoken. But it just wasn't exciting enough. She left before the season even ended, don't forget. So she doesn't have much to talk about. That's the real problem.
She was more than willing to talk about Star Trek, even though she's done many more things than that. And she was very interesting to listen to. Nobody was leaving her panel if they didn't have to go to another panel.
And she had no regrets. You know, everyone's like, oh, do you regret leaving the show even though it became so big and all the movies? She's like, no, I was in my 20s. Gene Roddenberry pretty much said, you're just going to be a background character. Gene didn't know the show was going to become what it came, where every character was going to get their own focus. And that's the thing she regretted. She wished that she did stay along because, you know, that's what it turned into. But at the time, she had no regrets because it turned into other opportunities and she was fine. I enjoyed every moment of it, but still is not as strong as the next 5 people we have on this list. It's amazing that 5 were even better than this. But number 5 is, believe it or not, Mick Foley. I know you're probably all shocked. Yeah, it was Mick Foley was our number 5.
That's right. This man loved it, lived it, and he was not afraid to talk about it, even to the point that he even joke and say, There's no kids in here right before even telling the story. This man made you want to listen to every word.
But the problem is, it's just the four that come ahead of him were just more interesting, and the interaction was a little better. I mean, Mick Foley was very laid back. He was very like, hey guys, I'll talk about anything you want. And he did. Knowledge was through the roof with Mick Foley. That's where he really excelled. I think it was very interesting. I was out of wrestling at the time. I stopped after WrestleMania 9, as I mentioned a few times, and I haven't gone back since. But I have dabbled in it where I learned everything that went on. So I knew Mick Foley was the three characters and what they were all about. And he wasn't afraid to talk about it. He was actually very humble. He was honored. But he also seemed like, you know, hey, I'm just going to keep this train ride going as long as I can. And that's the attitude he had. And it was fine. It worked. And that was it. It was a very average but fulfilling panel.
And now moving to number 4, Austin St. John.
Yep, the former Red Ranger. He was very interesting. You know, we saw him before when he was in that mixed panel in Lexington, and he was fine there, but he was really overshadowed by all the Power Rangers who were on the panel. Finally, we got to see Austin St. John on his own, and he didn't disappoint. Happy, very jovial, very knowledgeable, very entertaining. It was wonderful. It was exactly what I hoped for. He told his history, how he became the Red Ranger. He talked about his feelings of the show. He talked about other characters. He talked about his interactions. He talked about how much he loved the fans. He was so great. The crowd was so into this. There were so many Ranger fans there. They were all just grinning and happy. I mean, to meet the original Red Ranger, this is what I hoped for. I was very happy with this.
He definitely brought the knowledge, and he got the interaction down pat. He was great. He got people excited. It was amazing. It was a fun panel. All the top panelists were in a league of their own. Really, only downside to his panel was the fact that the lights were giving us headaches because they were so bright. Now we're going to move on, and in third place, the bronze medal
goes to the Legends of Wrestling, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Kane, Sergeant Slaughter, and
Matt Hardy.
That's right, because Nash was supposed to be in this panel too. They replaced him with Matt Hardy, which was a good addition, by the way. 4 classic wrestlers that were through many different promotions in their careers, and it was great. You know, this was similar to the Power Ranger panel that we ranked so highly in the Lexington review that we did this year, and you know, it was thrilling. It's like each one of them got to say something. They kept going back and forth to all of them. They kept following up. The camaraderie was so on par with all of them. They were getting along so well. Anything was on the table. They weren't afraid to go there. It was exciting. The fans were asking such great and passionate questions. It was real questions like, what's your favorite memory? What's your favorite match? Who'd you hate going against? What'd you like to do? And then Sergeant Slaughter went into a bowling story, which was hilarious. And Kane was gushing over Undertaker, which you would expect. And they all just had a love of old school wrestling, and I enjoyed it. I could have sat there for another hour and listened to all 4 of them talk some more.
It was definitely a great panel. They knew exactly what they were talking about, and they knew how to play to a crowd. It was great seeing some of our heroes from yesteryear, and they were proud of being wrestlers, which is what you want to hear, because some of these panels we heard, they're like, oh, it was just work. No, this was their life.
The silver medalist, number 2, goes to Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime.
That's right. He had it all. He was a hard worker in the fact that he was always signing autographs or doing something. At his age, that was amazing. He actually talked about the characters, which is what everybody wants to hear in a voice actor. He had story upon story about those few times where he did get to interact with people. How he had a wonderful relationship with Frank Welker, and just how things came to be and how it worked. And it was about his career and how he was honored to be there. It blew away everything else.
Oh yeah, he was great. He beat expectations. I didn't know what to expect. You get a very tired Peter Cullen. He's up there in age now, talking about how much he had worked all week. Interview started. Once Milo started talking to him, he perked right up. And his memory wasn't the best, and he even admitted that, which is fine. Even with a bad memory, he still pulled his own. He's another one of those guys you could have sat there all day and just listened to him tell story after story after story about his career in voice acting and how he got there and how much he appreciates it. Come on, it's Peter Cullen, and he delivered. And he's still doing the Optimus voice to this day, whether it's in movies or other cartoon spin-offs. But it was great. I really enjoyed this, and I hope to actually get to meet the man again, because I feel like there's still so much more we can learn from him. Alright, we're getting ready to announce our number 1. The best panel we saw out of the 8 Q&As that we did is, that's right, Captain Kirk himself, William Shatner. Congratulations, you finally did it. Number 1. It was exactly what I hoped for last year. He talked about Star Trek. He was funny. He was entertaining. He interacted with the crowd. He had us in stitches. He went on the story. He made everyone feel special. He had perfect memory, total recall. He made fun of people. He made fun of himself. He made fun of things. He made fun of technology. He was making fun of double letters and names. I could have had this go on forever. And the best part about all this was the crowd was clapping, applauding, standing ovation, laughing, and enjoying themselves. And that's what this is all about. I wish more panels could have been like this.
We figured out what was able to allow him to succeed. He was sicker than a dog while he did these panels. Of course, we all know William Shatner loves hearing himself. He was very entertaining. He brought everything and then some to these panels. He also changed how the panels were run after him because of the whole don't ask for call-outs, don't ask for special requests, or just ask a question and only one.
Yeah, they were stressing that after the William Shatner panel because he allowed it twice there, which was silly.
He broke all molds. He earned the #1 spot.
And that is our Q&A rankings. And now it's time to give our final review and ratings of GalaxyCon 2023 in Columbus, Ohio. As always, our fearless leader and the real comic book hero here, Vespor, gets to go first. So Vespor, why don't you start off your views and feelings of GalaxyCon 2023?
Well, first off, I want to start by comparing this year's con to last year's. And I'm going to say that this con this year was much bigger than last year, and it seemed to be much better organized. The idea of opening all the doors and letting people in as fast as possible was great. There still needs to be a little bit something for the VIPs because they took away the VIP sitting areas and they took away the VIP door. Give them something. They are paying that much. They need a little something. This year was a great year for GalaxyCon. It grew. It was unimaginably large on Saturday. It was so full we could not move in the vendor areas. That being said, that was also one of the weaker aspects of this year's Comic-Con is because the vendors that signed up were almost repeats of every other vendor, except for the arts vendor, which were the only breaths of fresh air. What they did improve upon, they utilized the space there much better. The panels were great. They had better panelists than last year. They were all happy to be there. They weren't afraid to talk about it. But this con also is so great and growing well that you don't want to miss any of these panels. And that is always going to be a problem in the fact that there's always going to be overlap and you can't see everything you want to see, which is kind of sad. That being said, I enjoyed myself thoroughly. It proved that if you're not going to a Q&A panel or a paid event panel or workshop, it's probably best to stay away from most of the panels. They feel like they're just filler, kind of a letdown. My rating out of 5 stars is still going to be 4. This is probably the biggest and best con I have been to. They kept that same level of excitement like it was my first time coming to GalaxyCon. And that's why I kept it at 4. There's always going to be problems, but the moderators improved so much. Thank goodness, because they drug it down last year. It was just as exciting as our first year. Plus, we had the knowledge of what to do, how to get to places, and it just became much more enjoyable. And Ramses, what's your thoughts?
I thought this was worth going to. I had a lot of fun last year. I had a lot of fun this year. I would do it again next year, and we're going to do it again next year. All the days were exciting. They had so much stuff going on. Great guests. That's what's very important to me. You need a good guest list, and Peter Cullen and William Shatner alone are great, but they had so many things we didn't see. We could have done 20 Q&As here, and all of them would have been just as interesting. We only scratched the surface on the 8 we saw. That's how big this convention is. What are my downsides? There are a few downsides. This is for the fans. Stop with the complaining. Stop with the this and the that. Give the VIPs a way to get in earlier. That's fine. And then let all the fans go in as they arrive. It's not a big deal, all right? I don't even know why lines were being formed. They had lines going all the way around the building. As you can see from our footage in this review, it made no sense. Why are lines to get into an exhibition hall wrapping around the building when everyone could just be waiting on the back wall there? Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Open the doors. Let everyone into the gigantic convention hall where everyone can fit very easily. It wasn't a problem except for people that wanted to stand on that hill and make an issue out of it. My biggest complaint myself, though, is the vendors sucked. And again, we can't blame organizers of GalaxyCon for that. You put it out there, would you like a table? Yes, here's the fee, here's your table. That's all it is. But I can't just say, oh, that sucks, because vendors really sucked. Not the people, even though some of them were a little attitude-y and a little pushy. I didn't like, some of the vendors here weren't the best. But overall, they were great. I had no problem with them. But the choices suck. Artwork, anime, and dice and games. It's like, where's the retro stuff? Where's all the fun pictures? Where's this? Even the artist row, that was great, but we saw like a wood picture of a tiger's eye for $1,000. Who is going to a convention to buy a $1,000 circular eye thing done on a piece of wood? So even the artists were a little strange. Like, oh, free pictures if you pay money. I'm like, well, that's not free. No, is it? You're paying money to get a free picture. Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. I didn't love the vendors at all. And my least favorite was the video game area. They're bragging about how they have 100 PlayStation 5s and 100 Xbox, whatever the new ones is, and 100 Switches. They had no retro gamings. Last year, they had every retro game you could think of. This year, 0. And that's with the Z. 0 retro games. That's a mistake. You have all people like our age, 30s and 40s and 50s here, who would have loved to play some retro games and relive the memories. You had 0 at this one. That is a mistake. They fixed up the whole area, but no one was sitting in it because no one wants to play new games you can play at home. You want to play games you can't play at home anymore. Hopefully next year they fix that, because me and Vespor will do a segment on retro gaming if they do bring that back to next year's convention. Very disappointing that wasn't here. And lastly, I didn't like the lack of barriers and control here. It really was disorganized. They had great guards. The guards were all over the place. The nicest guards, by the way, if any of the guards are listening, you were the nicest guards I ever met. It was such a pleasure dealing with all of you, and I loved all the guards there. But GalaxyCon, you still haven't learned your lesson. You need stanchions, you need barriers, you need to keep things more organized, you need to make sure that the crowds aren't zigzagging all over the place. Yes, they did have them last year, and they were nowhere to be found this year. So what was the decision? Oh, we don't need them, the people will just be fine and handle it themselves. No, that's not how it works. You gotta keep this more organized. Have barriers and stanchions. I mean, that was definitely a problem. So that was the negatives. The positives are the moderators. I know, last year they were negative, this year they were positive. The moderators were so improved this year. I was like, yes, they're listening to the fans. Yes, this is what made these panels so much better. And I'm very sorry we didn't see Steve Whitmore again, because I really did want to compare what would happen this year. And I have such a feeling that it was going to be totally different from what we experienced last year. The new moderator they got, Victor, you were great. Victor, you were exactly what I wanted in a moderator. Got it, you understood it, you kept it moving, the fans were laughing. You were gushing too, but you weren't doing what Joe Jr. did last year. You're like, I'm gushing, now what's the next question? I mean, that was it. That's how you do it, exactly. Good work, Victor. You were the best by far. Great addition, GalaxyCon. More like Victor, less like Joe Jr. The guest list was great. They had so many good guests. I could have seen so many more that we didn't see. And I have a weird feeling it's going to get even better. See, the guest list of some of these other cons are getting lower and lower. Good cons get the good people, because there's a reputation now for me. Price is affordable. We paid under $100 for a 3-day event. Very affordable. And I feel like I got my money's worth. I feel like I got more than my money's worth. And by the way, that wrestling event, we forgot to mention that. That was another nice bonus. So the wrestling sucked in the Pictionary, so don't go by that. But then the actual wrestling event took place Saturday night, and it was like an old school WWF, WCW, Independent League, and they're all cosplaying as famous characters. It was so much fun. What a great con. So I'm going to give this 4 stars. And you know why it's 4 stars? Because of all the reasons I said. The negatives definitely do not outweigh the positives. It's not 5-star because what I did say does hold it back. It really needs to go that little extra bit if it ever wants to get there. But it has the potential. This is a growing convention now. GalaxyCon runs a good show. I'm going to give credit where it's due. You guys do a great job. Keep it up. Keep getting better. Don't let some fans ruin this for everybody.
I believe, Ramsis, we've said just about everything we can say about this con.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that covers it all. Thank you all for joining us again for another Vesper's Convention Reviews. It's been so much fun. Whenever you're watching this, just realize this is a passion project of us. We love showing our experiences at this, and we're glad we're able to share it. And if that makes your experiences there all the better, good. So thank you all for joining us for another edition. We'll see you all soon. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and of course,
ring that bell.
We'll see you all next time. And as the great William Shatner says,
we meet aliens every day who have something to give us. They come in the form of people with different opinions.
Wow, that was very deep. All right, see you all next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.